A National Guardsman saw an illegal immigrant stabbing people, and he shot him. The illegal immigrant fled. This is a crazy story. And man, today's just an insane amount of news. I mean, we've been having a slow couple of weeks. And now it's just getting nuts. I mean, Israel fired over 300 drones and missiles at Israel. Most of them intercepted, although a handful, I believe around 5, did strike Israeli military targets in Israel. Israel is vowing to retaliate. Russia is warning the U.S. if they get involved, Russia will enter the war on the side of Iran. And then we have Donald Trump, the first ever criminal trial for a former president. And the judge warned him that if he doesn't show up for every day, he will go to jail. He can't even go see his son graduate. This, of course, as Trump gave a statement, he should be campaigning, but he can't because he is being kept in this criminal proceeding. Now, the interesting thing is the charges against Trump would normally be a misdemeanor. And for reasons that have not been disclosed and no one really knows why, the DA in Manhattan said, nah, this time it's a felony because there's an underlying crime that no one knows about and we're not charging him with and no one else is either. So when Trump says this is like a witch hunt, it's hard to think otherwise. So, oh man. We're going to have to go through all of these stories. Plus, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, the Rust armorer from the movie set where Alec Baldwin shot and killed that woman, was sentenced to 18 months, which means Alec Baldwin surely should be going to prison any minute. We'll see. Before we get started, my friends, head over to castbrew.com and buy coffee because it's really good coffee. Appalachian Nights, of course, is the most popular. Everyone loves it, but we do have other blends. We've got Rise with Roberto Jr. It's a light roast. Rise with Roberto Jr., it's a going away sale. If you use promo code, all caps at the end, you'll get it for $7, which is like 60% off or something. So definitely pick up Rise with Roberto Jr. We ordered a ton of these bags for Halloween. The coffee is brewed periodically, so it's not like all at once, but we do want to just kind of get rid of the Halloween blend. So the end is the promo code, buy it all, and then it's gone forever. And of course, when you support Cast Brew, what we're doing, we're building a physical location in Martinsburg, West Virginia, and we are actively working on expanding into multiple locations already. This project has been underway for quite some time. The idea is that we will have a physical presence all over the country with your help and involvement. But ultimately, it's about physical locations where people can network because networking is one of the most important things in winning a culture war. So also head over to timcast.com, click join us to become a member, and you will get access to the members only Discord server where you can network online and have discussions with like-minded individuals. Discord server is basically a chat room for those that are not familiar, and I strongly recommend you sign up, hang out with like-minded individuals who are producing pre-shows, after shows, lots of extra bonus content. And as a member in the Discord, you can submit questions in the members-only uncensored show, Monday through Thursday at 10 p.m. You could actually call in to talk to us and our guests, so sign up now. This show is made possible thanks in part to viewers like you signing up to become members. So we really do need your support to keep these the lights on. And another big news, this is our last week at this here studio. Next Monday, we will officially be at the new studio, and it looks really crazy. It's great. It's very cinematic, higher quality lights, and the cameras are more flattering. They make you look thin and attractive. So we're really excited for that. So smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about all of this and so much more is Harmeet Dhillon.
Yeah, happy to be here today.
Who are you, Harmeet? What do you do?
I am a lawyer. I'm the founder of the Center for American Liberty and the Dhillon Law Group. I've been practicing law for about 32 years now. And I'm a knitter. Knit the sweater that I'm wearing today. I'm debuting it in the media today on your show. And I'm actively involved in a number of issues in the news. So represent President Trump in multiple cases. I represented him in California with Stormy Daniels in the civil cases, won him a bunch of money there. And I'm following the current case with interest and have been honored to represent him in his campaign as well.
It will be interesting, this criminal case against Trump right now, because it relates to Stormy Daniels, who owes Trump money.
Owes him money thanks to the work that my firm did. About $600,000 was the judgments, and then she had a little bit against him. So net, she owes him several $100,000 and has said she'll pay him over her dead body. And so, yeah, I think that's going to be some interesting impeachment testimony when she testifies in the criminal trial. The fact that she owes him a lot of money and has done so for many years is definitely motive to shape her testimony. It's going to be real interesting.
Right on. Well, thanks for hanging out. Libby Emmons is here.
I'm Libby Emmons. I'm hanging out. I am the editor-in-chief of the Post Millennial. I'm glad to be on with Harmeet. I'm a big fan. I'm interested in your work, so glad to be here.
Yeah, I think we last saw you at Turning Point.
Yeah, that's right. 2023, when I was running for RNC chair. That's right.
So glad you're here.
Thank
really
you.
good to see you again.
Yeah.
Ian Crossland, also very happy to be here. And we got Serge over to my right.
Yo. Hello, everybody. Good to see you guys. Hope you enjoy the show. Let's get into it.
And just real quick, I mean, with Ronna McDaniel out, imagine if they just voted for you, you were there, they would have avoided this whole fiasco.
Well, I'm trying to be nice. You know, it was a tense time there at the RNC. We do have new leadership there now. For me as a citizen, you know, it's really life and death for many people what happens in this election coming up. And so, you know, how the RNC is run affects election integrity issues. It affects our readiness to ballot harvest and things like that. So I hope and pray that we're able to catch up to what the left has done over the next few months.
Who's running it right
well,
now?
We'll get into it. We're going to second. Let's just jump into the news. We have this story from the Post Millennial. Illegal immigrant stabs two others, flees back to Mexico after being shot by National Guardsmen. The two who were stabbed received non-life-threatening injuries. So there's a lot of news over the weekend, of course, Iran striking Israel. We're currently waiting to see if Israel respond. But this story, of course, has been bubbling up. And I think this one affecting our southern border and involving a National Guardsman shooting an illegal immigrant, I think is a, I don't know. I mean, is this crossing the Rubicon, or is this just, to me, it seems like we've gone from illegal immigrants attacking National Guard and then being let into the country to now National Guard this is it. We were hearing stories about the National Guard requesting the ability to open fire on illegal immigrants if they need to, and now it's happened. So I'm maybe this is just a flash in the pan, nothing else happens, but it certainly seems like conflict on the southern border is bubbling up. Mm-hmm. This could be a shot heard around the world kind of thing where the National Guard just shot a guy trying to break into the country.
Well, and what does it mean for other people who are trying to cross into the country? Are they going to be looking at this saying, I'm taking my life into my hands by approaching these National Guard and I need to be armed myself, you know? I mean, this guy was clearly
how
armed
would they
with a
know?
knife anyway.
Because they're like, you know, being smuggled into the country, and I'm not sure they're scanning Twitter. So I think it would take a while for that to filter back. And also it depends on what the reaction of our government is. I mean, the last time we had something even close to this happen, the National Guard was castigated, or our law enforcement officials were castigated for allegedly using horsewhips on these aliens, which they were not.
Yeah.
And now I think when you see like suburban sunny San Diego, you see a boat pull up on the beach and dozens of people come out of it. I think the Overton window of Americans' tolerance for what's happening at the border is actually shifting.
Let's play this video. Actually, is this we have the video here. Libs of TikTok posted it. This reportedly happened yesterday in Carlsbad, California. A group of mostly military-age males invaded our country illegally via boat and then dispersed to the city in cars. Are any of them on the terror watch list? Do any of them have a criminal history? We don't know. We have no clue who is in our country. Take a look at this. This is nuts. They outright abandoned the boat. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people on that boat. It's like a clown car. Watch this.
It's like a clown car. It's crazy.
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. There still might be people climbing out.
Those guys could have, like, explosives strapped to their chests.
This has got to be like 20 people on the one boat. They abandoned it. The crazy thing, Carlsbad is one of the wealthier areas.
That's what I'm saying, is like, you don't see that. You see, the Tijuana border, you see people coming over there. You do not see this on the beaches of California. That's like our Rubicon, as you say. Like, that does not happen.
I may be mistaken, because it's been, 10 years since I covered this, but during the drought in the 2010s, Carlsbad was one of the areas where the people were demanding the right to water their lawns during a drought.
Oh yeah,
when
this
large-
is a wealthy upscale coastal community, and there are tech companies there now.
Yep.
This is not what anybody who's paying taxes there wants to see in their neighborhood. I'm telling you.
Are they gonna? They're gonna vote for Trump. They have to.
Well, I don't know about that. Let's not get crazy here, but I think people
Yeah, that
are
would be
not going
crazy.
to. I mean, I can tell you in San Francisco, the Karens are suddenly like, well, what's going on? Like people are pooping on my doorstep, and this is not cool. So people really are losing their tolerance when it's happening on their doorstep.
There's a wild viral video. I don't have it pulled up, but it's a lady who's like reaching her hand through a smashed window trying to take stuff out of a store.
That is crazy
You
in
saw it?
Sacramento.
Yeah, in Sacramento.
That's nuts.
And then the cops ride by and
Cops
stop and
on
look at
bikes.
her, and then they just leave.
Oh, that's
They look at her for a
pretty
minute and
much.
they just keep going.
Now I don't. The video in the video. I don't know if she smashes the window, but she's like rifling her through the window, grabbing stuff, and then she walks away from the stairs and is like grabbing stuff in the front of the building, moving bricks, and the cops just look at her and then leave. No question. Just okay. She's good. Not getting involved.
Yep. That's
You said in the intro that voting for Trump for some people is life or for some people is life or death. I think for this country, it's life or death.
That's what I meant to say is that we are every day seeing things we took for granted completely eroded. I'm seeing the way that judges predictably used to rule. Just they're going the opposite direction for purely political reasons. And so, the rule of law is eroding on a daily basis in our country.
Well, here's this is crazy. There's that Apple River, like we're jumping all over the place, but there was that Apple River story in Wisconsin. You see that one? I was listening to Law of Self-Defense. He's been on the show. And he said, I'm drawing a blank on his name. Forgive me. If you're an older guy with a pacemaker, you're surrounded by a bunch of people screaming at you, attacking you. You have a right to defend yourself. And I'm thinking to myself, well, then why is he going to prison? Why did a judge convict him? Why did a jury or a judge or whoever convict him? I just see more and more. I'm not a lawyer, but it looks to me, based on what I'm seeing in the courts, that it feels like this country is rapidly devolving into people. I've described this among the political class. The Titanic has hit the iceberg, so they're rushing to steal all the fine china they can and get into a lifeboat and leave before people realize the ship is sinking. And so I see what appears to be judges where they're just either hyper partisan, totally on board with whatever lie or whatever, like everything against Trump, or outright just don't know, don't care, justice doesn't matter, just get in my courtroom, bang the gavel, you're done.
Yeah, well, what you're actually seeing is even before that, it's the prosecutors. So over the last 2 decades, Soros has managed to purchase the prosecutors in major cities throughout the United States, including in places you wouldn't have expected. And the net result of that is that they usually ignore crime that affects most of us, and then they selectively prosecute crime for political purposes to shame people, to change the outcome of people's behavior. You're seeing that in Alvin Bragg's case this week in New York. You're seeing it in Philadelphia. You're seeing it in Wisconsin. I mean, where we're going to be having the RNC meeting, the National Convention in Milwaukee, is that kind of prosecutorial setup. So you wonder, if people attack us, if Antifa attacks people going to the convention, who is going to get prosecuted? Because I can guarantee you some of them are going to fight back. And
Well,
so,
we're planning on being at the RNC, but the DNC is in Chicago, and I wouldn't. There's nothing that would convince me to go to Chicago during the DNC.
You saw the
Yeah.
video from over the weekend. It was activists in Chicago learning how to say "Death to America, Death to Israel" in Farsi.
Yep.
At a meeting that was designed
tutorial.
to teach everyone how to disrupt the DNC.
I mean, look, that's the other big story. I'm like trying to get through all these stories in the intro to the show. We had waves of pro-Palestine and some pro-Hamas protesters shutting down bridges and airports all across the
it was
country
a
today.
day of action.
Oh, man.
And I think it was, I
What a-
saw
what a
something
wild-
about how it might have been funded by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard or whatever.
Oh, that would be crazy.
Yeah, isn't that sort of nuts?
But I mean, this
I don't know if that's
we're
real, though.
7.5 minutes into the first segment. We've gone from National Guardsman shoots illegal immigrant to crime in the streets. Now we're criminal prosecutions, and now Hamas and Iranian funded protests in the United States. Jeez, what happened this weekend? It's like a switch was flicked.
To specify on this post-millennial article, did you write this about the...
No, I didn't. I
Did the
think
guy?
this was Tommy.
It said that he stabbed 2 people.
Yeah.
The guy came across the border legally, and then he cut 2 people. Is
He
that
was,
what happened?
Yeah, he was stabbing.
Yeah.
He was
Difference.
stabbing 2 people.
That's true. He put it in them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The tip
Non-life-
of the blade, that's a stab as opposed to a slash across, which would be
Yeah.
a cut. And then the guy opened fire on him after he
Yeah.
saw him attempt murder. So that it's not like he shot a criminal alien. I mean, technically, he shot an attempted murderer
Mm-hmm.
in defense of others. So
Yes, but
like,
this is
I
a
think
guy.
that kind of argument.
This was always
is
the
understandable.
point. At what point does the violence start? You know, like we've seen photos and videos of cartel guys with rifles smuggling humans across the border. And then then Republicans had that bill where they were requesting authorization for the National Guard to use lethal force if need be. A lot of concern that we would get to the point where there would be active conflict on the border. Now, this may be one crazy guy doing one crazy thing, and sooner or later it was bound to happen. But again, this is, you know, in the world, it's only possible until someone proves it's possible. There's quite literally a trick in skateboarding called impossible. Now, you don't have to know about anything about skateboarding, but let me tell you this. There's a trick in skateboarding called the impossible, which is one of the most commonly done maneuvers ever. And it was because back in the day, one of the big names in the industry said doing this trick would be impossible. So then some guy did it, and now it's so common, children do it. My point is, people think it's not possible to get to the point where the National Guard is opening fire on waves of criminal aliens storming the gates or something like that. Now we have a National Guardsman shooting a guy, shooting an illegal immigrant. It is entirely possible this escalates. It is entirely possible the National Guard shoots someone else. And that's the concern. Is this that breaking point where it's like, oh man, like our border is so damaged now. We actually just had a National Guardsman shoot a guy. What happens if this gets worse? What happens if now the cartel's showing up saying, hey, if you bring someone and that person acts up, they're going to shoot at you. You need to be prepared. What does that mean? Do they wear body armor now? Does it change? Do they change their tactics? Does this result in the escalation?
It could do. I keep wondering if we've already passed that point that in history books they're going to say, you know, this was the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand. You know, I keep wondering about that.
Could be.
Was it this?
Iran.
Was it Iran shooting
Nobody
missiles
knows,
at
man.
Israel? Was it October 7th? Was it before that? Was it the botched withdrawal of Afghanistan? You know, was it Biden unfreezing the $16 billion to Iran?
Let's pull up the next story because wow, talk about the news from Axios. Israel vows to retaliate against Iran for missile attacks. I'll give you the quick version. Over the weekend, you may have seen what happened. Over 300 drones and missiles were fired from Iran, from Houthi rebels and other militia groups at Israel directly, flying over Iraq and Jordan. Jordan, I believe their Air Force moved to intercept some of these. There were multiple layers of Israeli defense to take out many of these rockets and missiles. The U.S. deployed ships, which actually, I believe, also intercepted some of these. Around 5 actually struck Israel. Now, there was some reporting earlier. People were saying that Biden's administration had provided guidance to Iran. The story was that through Turkey, the Biden administration warned Iran that there were, you know, if they cross a certain line, that would be like a red line or something. But the U.S. is denying they in any way gave any advance information or anything like that. And I think that's a silly point unless we have more direct evidence as to what was said, because Trump had also threatened Iran, if you do X, we will obliterate you, which is like setting the guidelines. I don't think that matters. What matters is that Iran directly attacked Israel. Nation on nation. Israel is now vowing to retaliate. Biden has already said support for Israel is ironclad. We will defend them. Vladimir Putin warned the U.S. not to get involved and said they would back Iran if this escalates. So, of course, following this, World War III was trending again. Now, here's the thing. Libby was just mentioning a second ago that, you know, where's this Franz Ferdinand moment? What's this shot heard around the world? And the issue is it could have happened 6 months ago. It could have been Ukraine. We honestly have no idea. We're in the thick of it. We won't know until 50 to 100 years from now when they write the history books on World War III. Some people are saying it was when Israel attacked the embassy in Damascus. That was an attack on Iranian soil because that's the embassy. And then you have other people saying that's because an Iranian general who was facilitating the Hamas attacks on Israel was there and he was a target in their active war against Hamas. It's impossible to know when this started. I don't know.
I didn't know you could declare war on a group of people. That's a weird new thing that never existed before.
What do you mean?
9/11's war on terror, war on drugs. It used to be a sovereignty would declare war on another sovereignty. There were no war on terror, war against this type
those
of
are
person.
fake.
Yeah, these like wars to get the guy that thinks that way is like, what the hell? It's
But what
never
are you
gonna
talking
end.
about?
Used to
What are you
have-
talking about here? What does that have to do with what we're
Going to
talking
war with Hamas. Like tomorrow, 9 new guys could join Hamas. Then what? Does the war just go on tomorrow again too?
Well,
what about in a year if
they're-
more
they're-
guys join Hamas?
They're at war with.
What if
with
more
Gaza.
guys join? What if the
Ian.
war causes more people to join Hamas? Then do they just
Yes.
keep fighting forever? Is that the life?
We're talking specifically about
I
Gaza.
think it's nonsense.
And Hamas is the government of Gaza.
Yeah, they're
So-
a government of a territory.
Right. So Israel is at war with another government.
Then what are the dudes from Hamas doing in other countries? Like, aren't there people like the heads of Hamas in Pakistan living healthily and safely
Qatar
right
and
now?
other countries.
What are they
And
doing?
why-
Why are they not taking them out if
and-
that's what they want to do?
Because they don't want to die in Israel's attacks on Gaza. They're cowards. They're putting their own people at risk, and they are sitting in 4-star, 5-star hotels.
Why doesn't the Israeli government take them out with drones if they're in foreign countries and they're the targets?
Attack foreign countries?
Then
Harboring
you're,
terrorists,
Then you're attacking countries with their own military allegiances with their neighbors. And
That sparks,
so
that escalates war.
that is an escalation, which is, I think, they're trying to
and
phase
Ian,
that kind of escalation.
the United States has military personnel in other countries doing the exact same thing. So, but I agree the U.S. can and should be talking with, say, like Qatar and other countries and saying those guys need to be brought out because they're escalating this war. I don't know exactly what's going on there. Maybe there is something. Maybe there isn't something. It's not so easy to say Israel just goes into Qatar and then kills people. That would be an act of war on these other countries.
they're in like 5-star. They're like in the Four Seasons and places like that. They're in the fancy hotels and these big towers. There's no way to target them with a drone without killing a bunch of other people.
Have there been extradition attempts?
Yeah, that I'm sure there have been discussions about that, but I don't know anything about it.
I think it's a good point that the U.S. could be doing more. I don't know exactly what is going on, but what I can say is, in the bigger picture, asking, will this be World War III? I don't know. I mean, NATO's at war with Russia and Ukraine. It's possible that in 20 years, they're like, oh, World War III started when Russia invaded the Donbass. It was the ousting of Yanukovych. They'll say, oh man, the ousting of Yanukovych resulted in the fall of Ukraine. You go read a history book. This is really amazing. You read Wikipedia. You read Encyclopedia, and it will say things like, in 1941, so and so did this. By 1943, this is what happened. And you're like, yo, that was 2 years. That was 2 years. And these history books just jump because that's what they think mattered. It may be as simple as, with the ousting of Yanukovych in Ukraine, opening the door to creating a power vacuum, U.S. NATO interests began vying for power in Kiev, resulting in Russia invading the Donbass to secure a land bridge to Crimea, igniting World War III. It could very simply be when the president fled, World War III started.
Although now that we have a better understanding of how history books are written, we know that it's maybe not necessarily what they think actually happened, but there were perhaps lobbying interests as well. We've seen lobbying interests in American publishing, downplaying the concept of jihad, downplaying the atrocity of 9/11, and saying, really negative things about Christians and about Judaism, and saying, trying to equivocate terrorism with Christianity and Judaism, and balancing that out because of oppressor colonialism and things like that. So it, in a lot of ways, what it says in the history books is going to be entirely dependent on who wins this culture war that we've been in the throes of for at least a decade now.
Yeah, that's where my head's at too.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That the historians of yore who are just trying to get to the facts, they don't exist anymore, and everything is polarized by the mainstream media. And you have prominent leaders in our country today who deny that there was a Russia collusion, hoax that happened in 2016, which is why anyone even knows anything about Ukraine. 2/3 of the American public wouldn't know anything about Ukraine if it didn't have to do with the Russia-Ukraine issues dating back to the 2016 election.
And then you look at like the Yuri Berliner situation where he was writing about NPR, the journalist at NPR who's saying NPR is hopelessly biased. And he's one of these. No duh. But like he's one of these old school guys who believes maybe we could just get back to basic journalism. And it's like, guy, that has been
naive.
lost.
That ship has sailed.
Wikipedia
long sailed.
Wikipedia says Spygate is a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, of course.
that Trump was spot on as conspiracy theory. But even though it's been adjudicated and it is a fact.
Wikipedia is, of course, garbage, and anybody who cites it is
Well,
foolish.
the current
but this
CEO
is
of
half the
NPR
country.
used to run Wikipedia.
That's right.
That's right.
She
That's
got
right.
$700,000 a year to do it.
Well, it was like
Almost
700.
800,
Yeah,
like 799,000.
Something ridiculous, yeah.
Yep. And
Well,
by the
I
way,
guess-
she wants us to believe she walks past the people in first class and
Right.
notes their white maleness.
That's right. I guess the question is, what do you guys think is going to happen? Do you think Israel will retaliate? Is it going to drag the U.S. in, then Russia gets dragged in, and then China moves on Taiwan during the distraction, and World War III? Everybody?
You did have
gold. Hey, you see the price of gold?
right. You did have the U.S. You had Biden say that Israel, any retaliation by Israel would not be supported by the U.S. And you also had Israel say that they would retaliate. So that's sort of an interesting spot.
Well, so Biden said we would not assist Israel.
Yeah.
Well, he said
Interesting.
all kinds of things. Depends on what time of day.
Right.
And who's speaking for him?
But, you know, Israel has so far successfully, and they would say that's in air quotes, defended themselves. But, you know, they can't live like that, having the fear of that 24 hours a day. And that's why I'm sure they are going to take some targeted responsive action.
I
Oh,
think
boy.
if we sit back and just narrate and watch, it'll be World War III hell, nuclear, everything will die. It will all come to an end. But if we get active and create new cultural endeavors, people around the world will start overthrowing their totalitarian regimes. The Chinese will create their republic again. It'll have to start from the bottom up, and it's got to come from inspiration of young people.
I do have hope for the young people.
I don't disagree in the general concept of starting a new culture to try and change things, but I do believe that, like, you know, the car we're driving in is shooting straight off the edge of the cliff. Now, it's not a question of can we stop the car from flying off the cliff. It's are our seat belts on? And for those of us that are, it's probably a bus actually. For those of us that are there and expect to be roughed up in the tumble down the side of this cliff, after the bus crashes and shatters into a million pieces, and a good portion of us who are paying attention and have prepared survive, what do we do next? And so that culture is going to be very important, and I agree with you on that. But you know, simple version is, you know, Iran attacked Israel. I mean, you can make the argument Israel attacked Iran's embassy, but like there's a war going on. Iran is actively involved in supporting Hamas in Gaza. Israel is at war with them, targeting their leadership, which is Iran. Iran fires from their territory into Israeli territory. There is no, wait, guys, let's change the culture overnight to stop Israel from retaliating against Iran and igniting a World War III.
Maybe not. I don't know. I don't know how things work in reality, man. So I used to think it was just so literal that everything was like next step, we'll create the next step, we'll create the next step, and therefore the next thing will happen. And now I'm realizing like things are they're more sporadic than that. Your behavior changes your entire environment,
It's a
which
lot
has
more
resounding implications on their entire environments, and it can like overnight things. People can have dreams and like change their feelings and things. So I have more faith that it's a more esoteric path. It's
Well, what's the possibility that Israel comes out with a statement saying, in the interest of not igniting an escalation which could lead to nuclear conflict, Israel will take the honorable position of bolstering its defenses and not retaliating on Iranian soil? Is that possible?
I don't know
Not
if
for your
it's
government
possible,
to
yeah.
survive. I mean,
Yeah.
I doubt it.
Well, apparently-
that's not realistic politically. I mean, I'm sure that I understand that there was a meeting today. I don't know what the outcome of that was, of all the different political parties in Israel, probably looking for some kind of, you know, consensus on what is the appropriate step. And there don't seem to be a lot of different shades of peaceniks over there who want to do nothing in response to this escalation by Iran, the Iranian regime, I should say. And
Yeah.
what's surprising to me as someone who's looked at history is, you know, we all lived in my youth in the Cold War, also living in fear of nuclear war. And then the people in the Eastern Bloc overthrew their oppressors and the world changed. And so now the military folks have to figure out some other targets and all of that. But the Iranian people have lived under this repressive regime for so many decades now. And that would be the simple solution, right? The Iranian people change their government. Boom.
Gold is skyrocketing, and I don't know. A lot of people. You want to pull this up, Serge? Yeah. So we have the gold chart, and it's been pretty stable around $2,000 for quite some time. How far back can we go? We go back 5 years. You can see here in 2019 it was at 12. Then it went up to 2. stayed generally in this area, going down a little bit, but now it's up to 23.28. I have no idea what that means. I don't know. People are just pointing out gold is shooting up, and it may be that people are concerned about what's going to happen to the U.S. dollar for a variety of reasons, not just World War III.
Right.
Yeah, but let's do this. Let's jump to the next story. We have this one from the Post-Millennial once again. Pro-Palestinian agitators block traffic at Chicago O'Hare Airport to protest Boeing U.S. funding of war in Gaza. But it wasn't just in Chicago. It was all over the country.
Yeah.
So in a coordinated effort, it would seem, far left, pro-Palestine protesters, and even many pro-Hamas, yes, the left is going to say, no, you can't say, literally screaming death to America at these protests. You have a coordinated effort to shut down, to damage in some way, economics. Maybe they don't intentionally, these people aren't thinking like I'm going to hurt the economy. But I think what was it, like the Golden Gate was 5 hours backed up in both directions?
Yeah, there was the Golden Gate. There
Brooklyn
was
Bridge.
Some issues on the
I think
Brooklyn
Seattle,
Bridge.
SeaTac as well.
Yeah, there was an issue also in a bridge in Newburgh, I think just north of New York City, a little ways up the Hudson. Yeah, and this is something that activists are planning for the whole week. Shut it down for Gaza for the whole week.
So it's kind of wild to me that Iran launches 300 drones and missiles at Israel, and then the far left immediately runs out in support of or in opposition to Israel.
Yeah, but
That doesn't surprise me at all. That's the status quo of the left culture for years now.
It's just sort of the mask is no longer on their faces.
Well, it's interesting. Maybe it varies by city, and you mentioned that there might be some foreign funding for this, but I can tell you in the Bay Area, there's no need for foreign funding for this kind of protest. There are rent-a-mob losers, and I swear, if you drilled in with a drone on who was there, it's the same people who were there for Occupy Wall Street. It's the same people who were there for Black Lives Matter. It's the same people who were there for whatever cause du jour of the left.
Trans women are women.
They're Chinese. They're like, they're all kinds of rent-a-mob people. So I think that's what it is in the Bay Area. There's just a mob of just malcontents who someone pays a small amount of money to show up for any given left-wing cause.
We call them the tourists. That's what we called them during Occupy, because we noticed this strange pattern of the same organizers weren't just showing up all over the country, but they were in Spain, they were in Turkey, and they were in China.
Right.
And so we started saying, yeah, how does that hippie anarchist guy sleeping in a park have money to go to Turkey? And they were in Turkey for quite some time.
When I sued Antifa over attacking our client Andy No, some of the characters who were involved in the mob that attacked him showed up fomenting Antifa riots in other parts of the country. They were clearly well-funded, not ragtag, not from the heart. This is a underground militia attacking Americans all over the country.
So a couple weeks ago, I was talking about with the illegal immigrants storming the border and attacking National Guardsmen. I fear that we are getting to the point where conservatives finally break confidence in government. I would argue that conservatives are the only group of people that are actually maintaining the U.S. government right now in that they have confidence in it. The far left completely disregards it. Default liberals march in lockstep with the leftist activists, whether they know it or don't, and their state governments, which are defying federal law, allowing criminal aliens to invade the border. Then you have conservatives who are saying, yes, sir, thank you, sir, back the blue. Oh, that dang old government. Meanwhile, Antifa firebombs federal buildings, and there's mostly no response. I mean, you look at January 6th, insanity. You look at May 29th, nothing. You look at Seattle, you look at the takeover of these cities, nothing. So my fear is that with these attacks on the border, you get to the point where people on the right start saying, it's not an issue of attacking federal buildings or storming the gates. It's an issue of there's no government anymore.
Right.
Law enforcement is illegitimate. They'll arrest you for fake reasons. They're basically clown costumes at this point. There's no respect for it. My fear is that we get to the point where confidence in government is shattered in the minds of the right. And thus, though it would be in a different way, the right begins to act in a certain way like Antifa in disregard for government authority.
Well, I don't know how long it's going to take to reach that point. I hope never. But I will tell you that this week's debate over reauthorization of 702 is exactly that. You see a very deep schism in the right on this issue. And I've been tweeting about it because I'm more on the libertarian side on these issues. I thought the Patriot Act was a huge mistake, and it was. And today, conservatives are falling hook, line, and sinker. The conservatives in Congress for these quote unquote intelligence briefings, they'll tell you the sky will fall if you have to go get a warrant from a judge. Oh, we don't have enough judges. Oh, there's like so many. Oh, there's already one warrant that was issued. And I know I'm going to piss off some of my friends in Congress. They've been texting me and saying, Harmeet, what are you doing? You're crazy, you know. But this is the schism. People no longer trust on the right that our government, the FBI, the CIA, the intelligence services, even the police in some cases, are going to quote unquote do the right thing. And that is very dangerous, because then you're wondering, to protect your family, who's going to protect my family? I mean, you know, in San Francisco, people have guns in their homes now. They didn't have that 5 years ago. This is a real problem.
You look at the issue of Daniel Penny, and that's why I fear that we could get to that point where the right just says there's no government. Daniel Penny, we've got how many slashings in New York?
Oh, there's been so many.
People getting
being
thrown,
punched in the
killed on the subway tracks. We have become, in a way, in cities particularly, numb to violence.
Mm-hmm.
It is really a problem, and insensitive to the suffering of our neighbors, and more insular in that sense.
Well, you don't even know your neighbors. You have no idea who.
With the Apple River story is particularly important in that it's a regular person. I remember, 20 or so years ago when they were saying terrorism, you got to be worried about the terrorism. That's why we need the Patriot Act and all that. The reports were that, no, they'll strike small towns, the terrorists. They'll come after, Bumpkinville in the far suburbs, because they want you to fear, no matter where you are, the terrorists will come for you. They want to make sure that everyone feels it. And so what I fear now, direction that we're going, is that with the Apple River story, it's a regular guy who's surrounded by a bunch of young people screaming and yelling, shove him, smack him, knock him to the ground. He tries to stand up, they smack him, and then he pulls out a knife. He fights back. He goes to prison. We have more and more stories like this. This is why the Kyle Rittenhouse story was so important, and this is years ago. If you cannot defend yourself from mobs, and we are now in the place where it's becoming more and more that you cannot. We had the story out of Milwaukee where a guy's house, this is a couple years ago, BLM protesters were outside. The same organizers had been involved in another protest, which resulted in the arson twice of a home. So this guy knows who these guys are in front of a house screaming. There's like dozens, and he brandishes a shotgun. They call the police. BLM calls the police. The cops show up, pull him out of his house, and arrest him. And before that happened, I was warning people. If the mob comes to your house and demands that you be arrested, the police will show up and say, what do? We've got 100 people threatening violence and one guy sitting on his couch watching a game.
Like the McCloskeys.
Arrest the guy in the house. It'll be easier.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We don't got to worry about violence, and they'll all cheer for it. And that's what
like
they
Fahrenheit 451.
do. The McCloskeys is a good example. The protesters break onto private property. These people are legally armed, and then they get criminally charged. At some point, I fear the right is just going to say the police are clearly just a leftist criminal mafia enforcing the left. If you're Daniel Penny, you go to jail. If you're Daniel Perry, you go to jail. That was the Austin guy who had to do with a rifle come up to his car. Not allowed to defend yourself. You go to jail.
He was pointing a rifle at him.
Well, he had the rifle at low ready, raising it up.
Well, it was right there.
Right. A far left mob associated with organized factions who have shot and killed people before, had shot people in Provo, Utah. And this guy sees a dude with a rifle walking up, raising it at low ready.
Masked guy.
Okay, so this one simple trick could turn this around, which is conservatives investing in electing conservative prosecutors.
Yes.
It used to be the case that all prosecutors were conservative. I mean, who wants to represent the man except for someone who believes in law and order? But with a relatively low amount of money, I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars to elect a DA, you can change this country. And so the cops are reacting. They're not themselves leftists, but they have become demoralized by two things. One is defund the police. Okay, so to keep your job, you have to kind of be politically correct. And number two is, why should I arrest criminals when the Marxist DA isn't going to prosecute them? So those two factors have severely curtailed the effectiveness of the police, demoralized them, strengthened the establishment types in there that just want to go along, get along. And the result is a decreased quality of life. Now, I see so much money. One of the big things that frustrates me on the conservative side is I see so much money, tens of millions of dollars annually poured into congressional campaigns that are in no way in hell going to win. I mean, I can name some. I don't want to embarrass anybody, but $10 million at a time for people who are in blue districts. If a fraction of that money was spent electing a district attorney in that same blue district, which, by the way, a lot of Democrats would vote for because people want law and order in their communities, even Democrats, we could change this country. But we have to get organized that way and get the grift out of our political side.
What I would disagree with you on in the police area is that who are these cops who gleefully arrest Daniel Penny? So it's one thing to say, I can't arrest this criminal. They're going to let him go anyway. It's another thing to be like, well, I know Daniel Penny did nothing wrong. He's a good Samaritan and a hero, but I'll gladly be the one to arrest him. That I do not believe it's simply cops being demoralized. I think many of the cops have been fired, removed. I believe the system is growing increasingly corrupt. We're talking about New York City, where the police leadership is politically appointed. They're not going to let defiant cops stay. So what you end up with is cops who will stand there as, legally at Sacramento, a woman is seen rifling through a smashed window and the cops are just like, not going to get involved in that one. But you know what it is? I call it a negative pressure environment. Law-abiding citizens, namely conservatives, will gladly, with smiles on their faces, talk to the cops, give all the cops the information, everything they need. The best example being New York and the Proud Boys, which I've brought up 8,000 times in the past week. You're familiar with this, right? Antifa and the Proud Boys fight. Antifa refuses to talk to the cops. The Proud Boys shake the hands of the officers and give them their information. And then the cops smile, arrest the Proud Boys, and put them in prison for 4 years. This is the negative pressure environment where cops are like, if I arrest the leftist, they'll fight me. The conservative will get on their knees and smile as I beat them.
Well, I was in the mob in 2016 in San Jose when I did the Pledge of Allegiance at a Trump rally. We leave the Trump rally, and there's 250 cops there. Supposedly, my husband and I are shaking the hands of the cops saying, thank you for your service. Turn the corner, there's a mob. And the police stood there and watched these American citizens, taxpayers, exercising their First Amendment rights, get viciously assaulted. I sued the San Jose Police Department in the city of San Jose. And it was shocking to me. That was the turning point for me when I realized, at least in big cities, blue cities, you cannot count on the police to come to your aid. And that's happening all over the country now, not just in blue cities.
And one of the most important things, certainly we can excuse some suburban police departments. We can excuse many sheriff's departments with elected police leadership. But conservatives need to be anti-big blue city cop. 100%. If you're a blue city cop, you are persona non grata, the same as the left. There is no quarter. You want to come into our coffee shop, we're not going to serve you the same as they do. Because what happens then, and I'm talking about the politically appointed departments where a Democrat appoints a police chief who makes sure that only the people are marching in line with them, because then you'll get a guy who's robbing liquor stores and the cops will be like, what's the point of arresting him? Then you'll get a good Samaritan like Penny and they'll say, now that's a guy I can arrest. But you stop supporting them. They need to be told, you can't do this job. No one will have your back. No one will support you.
I'm not sure I agree with that. I mean, there's a mixture of good cops and cops who have to feel like their hands are tied.
Where's a single cop to say, leave Daniel Penny alone?
How many cops were there?
No, I'm talking about right now when you've got cops marching him to and from court. Or how about Steve Baker and the FBI? All of these, and fine, federal law enforcement can say is different. But you take a look at there's always going to be cops in New York City who will gladly arrest the good guy. And then there's the good cops who will stand by and watch and take a paycheck. If you are part of a criminal organization that is committing crimes, I have no sympathy for you. CBP has agents on the border trafficking children into sex slavery. The CBP agent in West Virginia is in the same book as far as I'm concerned.
Well, that leads me to another legal issue, which I think it's arcane, but it is conservative judges who created the doctrine of qualified immunity that makes it impossible for citizens who are at the receiving end of police mistakes or worse to sue them and hold them accountable. And that is an outrage. And I have sued the police time and again, and federal police and prison guards for different crimes they've committed against citizens. And time and again, they get away with it because of qualified immunity. They get the benefit of the doubt. That's not in the Constitution. It's not even in statute. It's made up by judges, and conservatives perpetuate it. It's a big problem on the right.
I think when it comes to places like New York City, and again, I'll stress this, I've had suburban police departments that were fantastic. Our sheriffs out here are great. Talk to us, work with us when we have issues and help us out quite a bit. When it comes to New York City, so long as conservatives keep saying, well, because of the good cops that may be here, which aren't speaking out or doing anything positive as far as I'm concerned, I won't badmouth the department, which is putting the boot on the neck of Good Samaritans. It's like, nah, look, if like the police union of New York should have come out and issued a statement. Daniel Penny is a hero and this is wrong.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
They should have held a press conference. Our city streets are becoming corrupt, crooked. We're getting the blame because we can't arrest it. No, nothing. I see these photos of NYPD dragging this guy away in cuffs and I'm like, what? That's remarkable to me.
Yeah.
If I was a cop, and this is why I would never be, and they said, hey, I want you to cuff that guy and bring him in, I'd be like, no, fire me. It's not happening.
The thing about the losing confidence in police and losing confidence in the institution of the government, it is part of a continued line of losing trust in our institutions across the board, right? We no longer have trust in the educational system to actually educate our children at any age, at kindergarten, through college. We have absolutely no faith in those institutions. We don't have faith in the institutions of of any of the museums, any of the cultural institutions, any of the media institutions, any of the not-for-profit institutions. We have NGOs on the border that are working to help, bring illegal immigrants across the border.
Yeah.
They're doing that. So if conservatives are losing trust in government, it's really just continued dominoes falling.
I want to jump to the story, and then I have a question for everybody. It's from Mediaite. Judge warns Trump he will be jailed if he doesn't show up to court every day of hush money trial. Trump wanted to go see his son graduate. He will not be allowed to do this. Trump will not be allowed to campaign. This trial is expected to last about a month and a half. Now, the question I have before we get into all the nitty gritty of this trial for everybody is, do you think that if Trump doesn't show up, or do you believe that the police departments in New York City will defy orders to arrest Trump, or will they gleefully and smile and say, I'm the one who arrested Donald Trump?
I think they'll love it. They'll get free beers forever at their local pub.
That's right. Now,
some of them will. It just takes enough to arrest him. They'll definitely find cops to do that.
What's interesting is where they're going to put the Secret Service in jail.
Right. But I imagine in New York, the response people would say is, well, of course, the cops in New York would want to arrest Trump. The whole legal system's out to get him. It's all biased and corrupt. The prosecutors are out to get him. The judges are out to get him. You think the New York City dwelling police officers aren't as anti-Trump as everybody else? Maybe they're slightly better, but we saw around 30 police officers defend Bill de Blasio when he illegally stole taxpayer money to paint Black Lives Matter in front of Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue.
Just to stick it to Trump.
Stealing tax money to do it. And the cops, with smiles on their faces, defended his right to do this and protected it. If Donald Trump
did not go through the proper channels.
Absolutely not. And cops were happy to uphold the criminal activity. If Donald Trump was found in contempt, all the police officers in the correctional, all the guards, all the cops, they would all gleefully arrest and throw him in lockup. And if they were told to beat him, they'd do it too. You're not going to be able to come to me and say, oh, a cop would, are you kidding? It's New York City. The judges are doing it. Every judge Trump has had. Now you've got a judge telling Trump he can't see his son's graduation. The charges in this case are a misdemeanor. For some unknown reason, Braga said this time it's a felony.
Well, and a lot of the misdemeanor counts, the 34 misdemeanor counts, are the same count over again because they give him a count for the invoice. They give him a count for the recording of the invoice as a legal fee, recording of a payment as a legal fee, and the recording of the receipt as a legal fee. So each one of those, that's 3 counts. It would be the exact same payment, but it's 3 counts. So it's, like if the Trump organization had made the payment to Michael Cohen, what was it? You said $134,000. If there had been 1 invoice, 1 check, and 1 receipt, it would only be 3 counts. That's all they would have.
But these were retainer payments.
Retainer payments,
they were
exactly.
Totaling $400,000 over a period of time, and that's actually the defense argument, which is this is
that
not
they were
a
regular
payoff.
payments.
These are regular payments for services rendered in the course of business.
And did the payments start before Stormy Daniels had been paid off?
Well, Michael Cohen was already Trump's lawyer and had been representing him on other stuff. So there was a general ongoing legal relationship. It wasn't just related to the Stormy Daniels matter.
Right. My question is, if this is a regular reoccurring retainer payment, Did the retainer payments begin before or after Stormy
I
Daniels
think
had
they're
received-
only targeting these retainer payments that happen after the fact. I think in other cases he was paid off in different ways for his services.
But I guess what I'm asking is it a static retainer that's been the same the whole time? Or did it change?
I think it did change. And of course, there was an additional need for legal services at the same
Right.
time as well.
So the issue I see is pending some like evidence that certainly Trump would already have to have access to that shows Trump explicitly saying to Cohen, I want you to pay her off to shut her up, but don't worry, I'll hide the money through retainers. I don't know how you prove this.
Well,
because
you can't prove it. And that's why the Department of Justice, Alvin Bragg's predecessor, everyone who's looked at it, the Federal Election Commission experts, everyone has said this cannot be charged as a
Right.
election crime or a crime at all because you can't prove it. The two key witnesses are known liars, Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen has pled to lying in court. And so Stormy Daniels has an affidavit out there saying, none of this happened. This is all lies. I never had a relationship with Donald Trump. How can you prove that case? A legitimate prosecutor would never bring this case. Only a prosecutor goring a political axe would bring this case.
And
you-
weren't
do you
the
think-
payments made to a media company instead? Wasn't it like a catch and kill situation?
There's a number of different
Right?
factual
Okay.
scenarios in there. Yeah.
Do you think Trump gets convicted?
You only need one juror. So the question is, who is the jury, right? You need one juror to hang the jury. And so that's really what's going on here. Now, the judge has stacked the deck there by allowing dozens of questions of the jury pool that ask whether they support Trump,
Yeah.
but has eliminated questions about whether you support Biden. He's also eliminated all Orthodox Jews from serving on this jury by ensuring that most trials in most courts around the country, they're dark on Fridays, meaning the judge attends to other business, injunctions, hearings,
Wow.
settlement conferences. He's bringing the 1 day a week on Wednesday, which screws over President Trump from holding rallies on the weekends that he likes to do. So he cuts into his rally time. And no Orthodox Jew can serve on a jury where it's all day court on
I'm
Friday.
just wondering why Trump is complying.
Well, what
What's
can
he
he do?
supposed
He's
to
going to be
do?
in contempt of court. He's in a legal process. He doesn't have a choice.
I do not believe this is a legal process, and I think it's only considered one because Trump agrees. So when you have what is not a criminal charge, when the DOJ and the FEC say this is not criminal, there's no evidence of a crime being committed to the point where the Fed said no, and you have everything you described, I suppose the only thing is Trump is like, no, we'll go because I'm going to get airtime. I'm going to be the number one story in the country over and over and over again. They're not going to prove it. It's going to make me look like a victim. I think the only strategy is that Trump's like, it benefits me. Why not?
Well, look, I think he's making the most of it, certainly, politically, but nobody wants to be in this situation. And I hope that they can seat a good jury where one person is honest and says this is BS.
But
It's possible. It's happened.
Doesn't a hung jury mean they try him again?
Maybe, but once jeopardy has attached, he can't be tried twice for the same crime. That's not a hung jury. That's failure to convict. That isn't hung juries when they don't reach a decision.
So if only one juror refuses,
That's right. In a criminal case in New York,
oh, then they can't convict him.
then they cannot try him again.
Interesting.
Yes.
But so what would happen so it's 12 jurors. One of them says he's not guilty and 11 say he is. What would they report then to the judge? We've been unable to come to a decision, or it's not unanimous. How would they report that?
Well, they don't have 12 people to convict.
So if
The judge would first instruct them to go back and try again. That's what this judge would do.
How long
That's
would
what
the
judges do.
wouldn't
How
they
would-
come
how long would
back
they
and
do
say,
that?
There's no manual for that.
So-
The judge has to make his own determination as to whether it's possible for this jury to reach a verdict.
would they then come out and say, Your Honor, we have been unable to come to a verdict?
Well, that one juror may be able to, convince other people as well.
But I guess my question is, do you need a unanimous not guilty or a unanimous guilty?
You need a unanimous guilty to convict him.
So if one person refuses, is it just he's not guilty?
He's not guilty.
The jury would come out and say, we find the defendant not guilty.
When the jury is done with its deliberations, when people are ready to go home, it's not guilty.
But so just to clarify, if one juror says not guilty, the foreman reports to the judge, we have found the defendant not guilty.
Yeah, I don't know the niceties of New York law on that, but
I'm just
my understanding is one juror refusing to convict in this case results in a not guilty verdict.
Because
After all deliberations are concluded.
right, what I'm wondering is, how would you get a hung jury then?
Hung jury is, they come back and they say, we don't have an agreement, right?
But if you have 11 saying yes and one saying no, isn't that a
Well,
hung jury?
what happens at the end of the day is they get worn down and, they tend to reach some kind of a verdict.
Yeah, I kind of feel like in New York, they're going to say guilty.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I like I said, you need one.
Yeah.
You need one.
Yeah.
Is it
Well, I
like
will see.
after, if the judge was like, go back, redeliberate, 3 days go by. If the judge is like, we're coming back next week, all week until you guys get it, is that unethical?
Well,
Well, at a
can't-
certain
they
point,
can't do that.
people are going to, piece out of that, right? He's given them a certain period of time of this trial, and people have gone to their bosses, gone to their lives. And one thing to keep in mind, there are 2 alternates as well. So there's actually 14 people who are going to be seated. And so what happens in a really long trial is you risk losing jurors during that process. And so, it has been the case where a juror in week 6 of a trial leaves. They're like, I'm sorry, I'm sick. My wife is sick. My boss needs me or whatever. And then one of the alternates comes in. So they do have a fail safe for that. But it's, I've had trials where that happens.
If you go down to 11 jurors, does the case need to be retried from the top?
If you go down to 11 jurors and you don't have 12, yes.
And the
And
juror
those
can just leave whenever they
jurisdictions.
want? If one of them's
No,
like,
they
"Sorry, I
can't leave
gotta
whenever
go."
they want. They'd be in contempt of court if they
Okay.
did that. So, but judges excuse jurors for hardships. For example, I'm having a heart attack. I've got COVID. My son died. Whatever. Like some emergency happens, then that's what happens.
We just were watching one case a few weeks ago where it went Wednesday, they couldn't come to a decision. Thursday, no decision. Friday, Friday afternoon, everyone wanted to go home. They made a decision. They just
Was
threw
it
the guy
that?
under the
Was
bus.
it the grandma? Was it that grandma?
What was it? It was a
No, it
guilty
was Doug
verdict.
Mackey,
Oh,
Yeah.
the meme guy.
Interesting.
He said they were hung. He said, go back. They come back. They were hung. He said, go back. And then finally, they were just like, we just want to go home. Just say he's guilty.
I would literally never do that. I would be like, I'm moving into the courthouse. I would literally
The
never
tricky
do that.
part here is that, I saw a conservative commentator earlier today saying, one citizen needs to get on that jury. But to get on that jury as a Trump supporter, you'd have to lie. You'd have to suppress that. And now people do that. It happens all the time. I tried a pro-life case involving the First Amendment in San Francisco. And there were people who wanted to get on that jury. We could tell because they were adamantly pro-choice and they wanted to see my client fry. And so it's the job of the lawyers to suss that out. And at the end of the day, a judge's refusal to bounce a juror who's clearly biased is reversible error. But by that time, the conviction would have happened. So that's like the jeopardy here is I'm confident, at the end of the day that these kinds of things will get sussed out.
Well, we have this from AP. Trump's historic hush money trial gets underway. First day ends without any jurors being picked.
Yeah.
Is that normal?
Well, so what happened much of the day today was the judge ruling on threshold motions and setting some rules. For example, his lawyer asked, he has these 2 things. First of all, there's the important family matter of his son graduating. And in a 6-week trial, I've had 6-week trials, it's normal for the judge to say, yeah, you can have that day off. It's courteous and normal. The judge has business to attend to, right? Next week, President Trump has a constitutional right to be at the hearing at the United States Supreme Court over immunity. And this judge says, if you go to that hearing, which is your constitutional right, your due process right, I will jail you. I will jail you for attending a very important
has to go.
other hearing.
Do you think Trump will go to the Supreme Court? I
He
kind of
has
feel
to.
like he will. Yeah, right.
He has to.
I think
the headline.
it won't
He's gotta
surprise
go to the
me
Supreme Court.
that the judge's, frankly, outrageous orders in this regard get called. Someone's going to call the bluff.
Trump must go to the Supreme
There are these
Court.
2
course.
different things.
The news headline: Trump held in contempt to be jailed for attending oral arguments in Supreme Court case.
It's a crazy time.
Man,
It's ridiculous.
this weekend was nuts. It was like a lever got pulled. They said like the news had jammed up in the machine and then someone took a big cotton swab the size of Cuomo's nose and jammed it in there to knock it all loose. And
Yes.
now it's just ripping.
Saturday, I went and had a beer for the first time in a long time, and I was just sitting alone at the brewery, just like looking out over the river, just thanking God that I was in a peaceful place. And that's when the missiles came flying, the drones came in.
And you look at your
while I
phone
was
and it's
sitting
like
there.
missiles.
I got
fired
home
at
and it's like,
Israel.
oh, another like what? I don't know if I'm just part of a greater. Like I do believe there's more to life than just me getting up and doing we're connected, and I don't.
You know, it was kind of wild because it was like Saturday night, and we were hanging out at the poker room, and the game got turned off for breaking news. Iran had fired missiles at Israel, and I just look up and I was like, in the poker room?
Really?
Wow. All these poor old guys trying to just get away and just relax with their buddies, and now it's like, hey, World War III is happening. Have a
My
nice day.
latest fantasies are about being off grid. Like that's what I imagine. I'm like total peace, no noise, no Twitter, no phone,
Just the
nothing.
sound of
Like
chickens.
this is or little birds or these crazy bees we got out here. We got the craziest prehistoric bees. They're like with wings.
Prehistoric?
Yeah, they seem it with wingspan. They're the size of my palm.
You're talking about carpenter bees?
I don't know. Whatever they are, they're flying around my house.
Those are them.
those big
Carpenter
fatties.
bees?
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
Yeah, but those are everywhere.
Yeah,
those are in,
well-
those are in New Jersey.
They're not in Brooklyn. I will tell you that.
They're certainly not in Brooklyn.
So let me just circle back to a question you asked. So we lawyers use two different terms. So a failure to reach a verdict is also known as a mistrial. And in the event of the mistrial, he can be retried. So if there's 11-1 and there's no agreement, the 1 doesn't persuade the 11, that's a mistrial. And so then the prosecutor has to decide if they want to bring the case again.
And they will.
And they will, but that might happen after the election.
I don't know. I kind of feel like the trial's already fake. Bragg
The trial is fake. This trial would never have been brought by a non-hack, non-Marxist DA.
Well, this is a DA who, as soon as he came into office, he was all on board for bail reform, letting people out of prison, closing down, like definitely not prosecuting people for certain crimes,
Right.
Reducing most like 52% of felonies. I think I was looking at it today,
Yeah.
to misdemeanors, and suddenly we're aggravating these misdemeanors to felonies for
That's
no
the point
good reason.
I was making, that all over the country, these Marxist DAs will prosecute you for your free speech, will prosecute you for defending your home, will prosecute you for defending your person, will prosecute you over bogus stuff like this. But they won't prosecute people breaking into your car, stealing your stuff, raping your wife. They won't prosecute those
They
crimes. that
prosecute
everyone
you
knows.
for defending
They
yourself, for
prosecute
defending
you
your
for
wife.
defending yourself.
Yeah.
And so this is and I'm talking about literally millions of dollars is all it takes to buy up all the DAs in the big cities in America.
So why are there not a lot of, there's a lot of leftist donors, there's Soros buying up DAs. Why do we not have a lot of conservative donors?
That is the question. Why do we not have conservative donors who are investing in these issues? And there's a grift factor. There's a consultant grift factor. You don't make a lot of money being the consultant to a race like that. It's not glamorous. And so I think that's a real problem on our side. They don't have that problem on the other side.
Yeah, the left, they're cultists. And so advancing the cult is its own reward. On the right, it's like, well, I'm trying to make money. And if you can't make money, then what's the point?
On the right, it's where's my return?
But the MAGA faction is the ideological faction of the right, where passion and conviction matters more than just the money. But of course, meritocracy plays a role in that, so people are trying to make money. You're always going to have a tough time fighting communists. The communists are driven by religious fervor. I don't know what to tell you. You don't have a strong Christian fervor. You've got a decent one, but they're too nice.
Yeah, but the thing is, there aren't that many Marxists in this country. It's just that the ones that there are elevated into positions of power. And a lot of people in the country are sheep.
But
they go along and they get along. And so you're holding out hope for the youth of this country. The youth of this country, particularly people at college age. First of all, college is a brainwashing machine for most Americans. Good kids go in and complete useless idiots come out. Even prior to that, you have these rainbow-haired weirdos teaching the lower, teaching the elementary and the secondary schools. And so I have, it's only kids who are being homeschooled or kids who somehow have very strong values at home who aren't coming out ruined out of that educational system in our country.
That is true, but we're also seeing Gen Z is pushing more to the right than any other generation we've seen before. Or it's a historical trend breaker. Typically, every generation moves slightly leftward on issues, namely cultural issues. But this time, Gen Z is actually, it was a few years ago. It's hilarious. 6 years ago, we saw Gen Z shift rightward. And then in the past couple of years, it's been a dramatic bang. I mean, support for same-sex marriage among Gen Z, according to a couple new polls, is lower than boomers and millennials.
It's been shoved down their throat and they're just sick of it.
Yeah.
You know, their teachers come to school with multicolored hair talking about their different neo pronouns, and the kids are just like, oh my goodness, why are we doing this?
But the issue of same-sex marriage, I think, is something else. I think when you see the polling showing that also young men are moving very much to the right and young women to the left, I think you've got young guys who are watching Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate, and they're just thinking to themselves,
My kid watches, my son, he's 14. He likes Matt Walsh.
well, Matt Walsh is in terms of like, I think that Andrew Tate does have a lot of good things, but I do think Matt Walsh is better in terms of like a father figure type
for sure.
inspiration for a variety of reasons.
I much prefer watching Matt Walsh to Andrew Tate. But
Yeah, Andrew Tate's he has a lot of silly videos he makes. They're pretty funny. But Matt Walsh is like a dad. You know what I mean? That's good. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Seems like a good dad, too.
But I think there's a lot of it has to do with young men being told they're bad, they're the problem, and they're just tired of it.
I bet a lot of them went through school and were playing along and knew it was ridiculous, saying words they didn't agree with, and now they're out of school and they're like, I have freedom now? All right, that stuff was ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
I think
so
a big
too.
component of it is when you're in school and you hear all these sweet nothings about how you deserve this and you deserve that, and shouldn't you get this and shouldn't you get that, you're thinking, yeah, I do deserve this. I do deserve that. Then you graduate, get a job, work really hard, and then you look at your paycheck and you realize, yeah, the other people deserved your money. Apparently, that was your idea.
Right.
And they immediately go, whoa, no, hold on. I worked. I deserve my paycheck. No. You as a young person advocated that the people who aren't working deserve your paycheck. And so you lost it. And then they immediately do a 180 and say, okay, that was a mistake. I also think dating plays a big role in it as well. Younger guys reaching an impasse where they're like, how do I start a family? How do I get a house?
Yeah, I mean, if you know What If All History, that Red Yard guy?
Yeah.
He released a video this weekend called The Upcoming Incel Rebellion, and then it got taken down by YouTube.
Really?
For reasons. And then he posted a whole clip about it, he reposted and everything like that, but just reasons,
He put it back
right?
on YouTube?
I believe so. I was reposting it when I read the post, and I was waiting for it to upload, but
Wow.
just
It's always
reasons, right? I don't
But
I don't know if
he's not wrong.
Yeah, he's not.
When
Just wanna
young
mention
men become listless and purposeless, you get revolts. They have nothing to do. They find ideologies, and then they lash out.
And if they don't revolt, they'll go to another country. Oh, wait, we're the country that they went to.
Exactly.
And they're here.
Yeah.
They're here, and
Yeah.
it wasn't what it was advertised as.
Well, you'd think many of them would leave, but it's being facilitated.
Where would they go? This is still the best country in the world.
Yeah, but I was in France covering the migrant crisis there several years ago. This is 7 years ago. And we interviewed migrants in Paris. It was cold. And they said, it's so cold. I hate it here. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't like the cold. I've never had the cold before. These are people who came from sub-Saharan Africa, economic migrants who were promised jobs and opportunity if they went on this dangerous trek. They were told that France wanted them there. The people working in these countries are saying, France is asking for migrants to come and take jobs. And they're like, really? So they came. Then they were put into these big inflatable tents that were freezing. And they're standing outside being like, I've never experienced cold before. And this is awful. I want to go
That's like
home.
what's happening in Chicago.
Yep.
Except in Chicago, they're also getting measles and tuberculosis.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going great.
Yeah. Chicago is going to be it's going to be brutal for a lot of these. It was brutal for a lot of these people, not realizing just how cold Chicago gets.
Venezuelans were going home.
You know what was really crazy? I went to the Chicago market this Christmas, and it was impossible to be in. And it was the weirdest thing.
What do you mean impossible?
It was shoulder to shoulder, and you couldn't actually do anything. So the Chicago market happens during Christmas, and normally it's like you walk in, you walk around, there's shops everywhere. They come from all over the world, and then you leave. This time, you couldn't even get in. I was just like, I don't know if it's even worth going into because everyone's just standing smash shoulder to shoulder, moving 2 inches. And I'm like, what's happening to the city? And of course, most of the people there were not from there.
They were
Or
just
I shouldn't say
wanting
most.
to be inside.
No, what I'm saying is it was a lot of migrants. I don't know if they were illegal immigrants or otherwise, but there were a lot of people who were not from Chicago. Maybe they were tourists or otherwise, but I'm like, aren't these people the same people saying we're overpopulated? Like advocating for mass migration into our cities that they claim are overpopulated? Doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense.
It doesn't, does it?
No.
None of it makes sense unless you think about it being used to change the outcome of elections, which I think is one of the things the left is doing with this influx.
One of the stories that we've pulled up quite a bit is the Help America vote verification system. So let me pull this up once again. We have the week ending March 30th, and we'll take a look over at our good friend Texas. Now, we brought this up several times. The Social Security Administration says 225,000 people registered to vote without IDs. 190,000 matches were found. 4,515 were deceased. When it came to Missouri, apparently the statement was that they were doing voter roll. They were cleaning up the voter rolls and verifying their voter rolls. But the HAVV, according to SSA, is only for new voter registrants, not for you to clean your logs. It would make sense that they were doing that. That's why there's so many. But Texas issued a statement saying it's not happening and that it must be an error. So, Harmeet, I'm wondering, you work with the RNC, if you guys are aware of what this is and why it's happening. Because, well, if Texas were to flip blue, and there has been speculation it may go blue. Maybe many people from California move to Texas, and Texas is winner take all. Democrats need only one swing state. Not even. If Missouri and Texas both turned blue, Biden wins. Trump could win every swing state. Biden will win if he gets those two. So I'm wondering if you guys have seen the story. What do you think it might mean? Or what are the plans the RNC has for dealing with ballot harvesting and other initiatives?
Well, I don't know what the plans are specifically. I'm not actively involved in any of that. I'm not part of the RNC's management at this point. I am assured that there are plans, but what the good news is that there are outside groups as well who are focusing on these issues. And Turning Point USA is one. I know there's some apps out there that folks are looking for. There's an app a friend of mine has made called Vici, and they have a whole plan to use sort of gamification to recruit citizens to help get their fellow citizens to vote. But the problem is that in most of the United States, efforts to impose voter ID requirements or even a hard requirement at the registration phase have been dismantled by the left. And again, well-funded liberal so-called nonprofits that are really political in nature have systematically opposed every attempt by red states to impose voter ID, to confirm eligibility, which now Republicans are coming around to, that we really have to up the ante on this. But I was just looking this up right now. In Texas, you can avoid the voter ID requirement when it comes to registering to vote by filling out an affidavit that there's a hardship, a substantial impediment declaration. And with that, you can avoid the voter ID requirement, which is, when you're talking about tens of thousands of people doing that, suddenly that doesn't look like tens of thousands of people having a problem finding their ID or what have you. It seems like something systematic, right?
If it's true that 1.5 million, non-citizens, illegals or otherwise have registered in Texas, it certainly sounds like Texas will be a Democrat state this election.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I'm sure people are looking into this. This happened 2 weeks ago, April 4th. The Secretary of State released a statement confirming that individuals are not required to have an ID to register to vote. They only have to produce a Social Security number. Well, some refugees get Social Security numbers. Yeah. And so, that's the problem. Now you're relying on them, and this is the case throughout the United States, to self-certify. For example, when we've driven voter registration to the DMV, which of course is, like we all know, the most competent arm of the government, you self-certify there that you are eligible to be a United States voter. And the problem is complicated by the fact that in many states, increasingly, and in urban elections, you don't have to be a citizen to vote in those elections. So varies by state law, of course, but in California and San Francisco, the notorious example is illegal aliens are entitled to vote for school board because their children, that the argument is, our children are educated in the schools. So there's a whole second tier system. So they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars setting up the system. And at the end of the day, 43 people or something like that registered to vote under that system. So it really blurs, and that's intentional. The intent is to confuse or, enable people who are not citizens to vote in this country. And then 4 years from now or 6 years from now, there's going to be rioting over that issue. Why aren't we allowed to vote in federal elections as well?
Right.
And Congress could actually shut that down. I started looking at this issue almost a decade ago. Congress could shut that down by passing a law saying that in the United States, and other people who are Federalist objections to this, but I think it's a real national problem at this point. And you could condition it on federal funding or what have you, but you could make a rule that says in the United States, you cannot vote in any election unless you are a United States citizen. And so that means school board or local municipal city council or whatever. And they could tie it to funding. If you want any federal funding to run your elections, which, by the way, they all want, they're going to comply with that, like the seatbelt rules and other rules like that.
What about you had Mike Johnson and Donald Trump on Friday talking together about how there should be how Johnson was going to propose a bill requiring people to prove that they are U.S. citizens before they're allowed to vote.
Right. So the left is responding to that by saying, well, that's already the law. Correct. It's already the law that in federal elections, you have to be a citizen. The problem is you don't have to produce ID to prove that you're a citizen. You simply check a box and say, I'm a citizen, I'm entitled to vote. And indeed, there have been many instances where, legitimate American green card holders, legal residents, have voted in federal elections because they checked the wrong box when they were registering their vehicle or what have you. They updated their voter registration. They got themselves on the voter rolls, and then they got the ballots because the ballots were mailed to them. And then they voted. And now they're felons, effectively. Yeah. They can never become American citizens if the law is applied correctly, because that's a excludable offense. You can actually be deported for that.
Which it ought to be, really. I mean,
yeah, it ought to be. But on the other hand,
it shouldn't be
somebody
so
who doesn't
easy.
speak English as their first language goes to get their driver's license and they check the wrong box. Someone mails them a ballot and boom, they become disqualified to be a citizen in a lawful country. Now, is that really happening? I'm not aware of people being deported for that. The problem is rather the opposite problem, which I think is Democrats encouraging people to vote without proper authorization.
I think one of the big plays they'll make is, you alluded to it already with, hey, why can't we vote in federal elections? They've already started using the phrase undocumented citizens, and they'll try and shift the language, and they'll make the argument that citizen simply means a person who lives here, so that in 10, 20 years, they can say, hey, we can't have a two-tiered system of citizenship where if you're an undocumented citizen, you can't vote. All citizens should be allowed to vote, and then they'll try and make it so that the moment you cross that border, you can vote.
Well, I think that is the view of the left. I think that is absolutely the view of the left. And you hear it from educated leftists who say, well, what do you mean they don't pay taxes? They pay taxes. They pay sales tax. Oh, yeah. They pay, their taxes are withheld because they're working, they've entered their social security number. They're paying into the system. No, they're not. That's a lie. And but the dirty secret of all of this is, why is this even controversial on the right? Because many American Republican donors have made their money off of the backs of illegal workers in their businesses, in agriculture, in meatpacking, you name it. In every industry like that where a lot of cheap labor is required, it is convenient and inexpensive and improves their bottom line and their sales to be able to compete with Mexico by simply hiring undocumented workers. That's a dirty fact.
Yeah, that's why Trump's a threat to them, because Trump actually had raids on chicken processing plants when he was president, and it resulted in I think 800 deportations.
That's right, in Alabama or something.
Yeah, and then these companies,
those were Republican donors,
and then Democrats made the arguments, but nobody wants to do these jobs. And then sure enough, tons of people showed up who were Americans who wanted those jobs.
Yeah,
and there was a reporter who asked, "Sir, are you here for the job fair?" "I am." "Why would you want to take a job like this?" He goes, "What do you mean? It pays more money than my last job." It was that simple. It was a better job. So they lie. What they want to do is they want to compete with non-citizens so that American workers are displaced. American worker says, look, standard of living here, I need money for my family. I got to make $15-20 an hour. And they go, nah, we're going to give this non-citizen $7 an hour. He'll take it.
Well, what Americans want, it's not that there are jobs Americans are unwilling to do. Americans want a fair wage and good working conditions.
Right.
And that's, and the dignity that comes along with earning your own living and supporting your family.
That costs money.
I don't know. That's what I want.
The people who aren't from this country are like, look, I make $3 an hour back where I'm from. If I can get $7, that'd be fantastic. I don't care what the conditions are. And then these companies exploit them.
And they put them in dorms and they take their passports and they don't let
Yep.
them leave and they do.
I remember I watched.
Not in California, by the way. They all have lawyers. They all
Oh,
have
yeah.
Marxist lawyers too. No, that's not happening. People are getting paid pretty well to do jobs that Americans would be willing to do.
Oh, I went to the Salton Sea during the drought coverage, and I met some young guys who were skateboarding. They said their parents were they harvested fruit on fruit farms not too far away, and they got $20 an hour, and they were not citizens. And he was like, he was born here. His parents.
Cesar Chavez would be overwhelmed.
Yeah, he said that he was born there, and so he's a citizen, but his parents aren't. So he tries to be careful. But his parents make about $20 an hour each collecting the fruit, harvesting the fruit. And I was like, $20 an hour? And this was 10 years ago. I was like, wow. A lot of Americans would love to have those jobs. But the issue isn't so much about the pay, it's about the legal requirements. If it's an American citizen working there, you've got liability issues. If it's a non-citizen, they simply tell them, hey, anything bad happens, you're getting kicked out of the country.
That doesn't work anymore. Actually,
Not
like
in
I said,
California?
there's a lot of lawyers for all people on the West Coast. They're still, but for a business, all it takes is a couple of bucks worth of profit. So you could pay an American slightly higher, you can pay somebody a little bit less, and our entire restaurant industry is built on that. All the food we eat is built on illegal labor in this country, and
Wow.
That's what Chuck Schumer always
it's a
says.
fact.
Yeah,
Yeah.
about why we should allow.
That's why we should
masses
allow it,
of
because
illegal immigration.
Of
That's
course,
what Chuck Schumer
yeah,
says. Yeah,
I mean, look at what stuff costs in Norway. Like it costs like 5 times what it costs here in America, because like not that many people live there, and they're all kind of very tightly controlled labor market, very strictly controlled labor market.
Man, people got to bring back the small town. Up in Martinsburg, the diner closed, and it's really sad.
Oh no.
Yeah, it closed a while ago.
That's
I
too bad.
remember there was a place on the north side. There was this. The city's developing. It's getting bigger. Chain restaurants are coming in, and there was this classic-looking '50s diner, hole in the wall, that clearly was from the '50s and had not been repaired since. And you'd walk in, and it was one of those diners where it's like a thin strip. You can
yeah.
You can sit at the counter, and then that's all you had. And I think it was just one old guy who made all the food. You'd walk in, sit down. You want a burger, fries, pancakes, waffle, sausage, whatever, basic diner stuff. And he'd make it right behind you, and then he'd flip it over and hand it to you. And then I remember a few years ago, went back for the holidays, and it was just gone. Shut down, out of business. What I assume happened is the old guy just either retired or died, and there was no one to inherit this, like,
Right.
this classic local place. And so what's happening now is these businesses close, the chains come in, and you're getting this plasticification of our cities. And that's
Yeah, the
nightmarish.
de-authentication.
Well,
of it.
look, a lot of that, of course, was accelerated by COVID.
Yeah.
And even in foodie Mecca where I live, San Francisco, the majority of the restaurants have shut. Like our favorite restaurants are pretty much all gone, and the ones that are there are suddenly charging like $30 for an entree. It's crazy.
It is expensive. Like getting takeout is really expensive. I was recently in Brooklyn and the Kellogg Diner in Williamsburg.
Oh, yeah.
It's gone.
Really?
It's closed.
That really? Wow.
Yeah,
it's closed.
Yeah, this
I
was
used to
like
eat there like all
yes,
the time.
me too. I used to go there with my
It
kid.
was like
all
2
the
blocks
time.
from Vice.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
It's right there, like right in Williamsburg, right under the
Yeah.
QE, right on the
Yup.
yeah, right there.
Kellogg Diner, man.
Yeah,
It
I
takes
was
me
I
back.
was I was going by in an Uber and I was just like, what is this? What happened?
Man. Everything's turned into plastic.
Yeah, I don't like the de-authentication of culture.
It's expensive to keep good ingredients too. The mom and pop shops tend to have a challenge keeping up with the cost of ingredients, because then if they cut costs and they end up using crappy, 3-day-old grease to fry their French fries in because they can't afford to buy new grease every day, then you can taste it and the fries suck.
Everything is just
But the
Cisco
thing
these
too
days.
is like the people who are running the corporate chain restaurants, they don't care about the food that they give you. And so everything is just super mid. There's like nothing good about it. I've recently been thinking
Man.
about that, and I'm just kind of like, I'm done eating other people's food.
like
I
that.
just
We-
want
we-
to eat my own food.
We need, like, the idea of you waking up with the family, you take your kids to the diner, and there's old Mr. Belvedere, whatever his name is, and he's the guy who's making the sandwiches and the pancakes, and he puts the little happy face in the pancakes for the little kid, and you know, he's part of the community. Everybody knows him. Now it's like you walk into the local diner. There's people you've never seen before. You don't know them. No one cares. No one talks to each other.
Well,
no one
and
knows
I was
their
going to
neighbors.
say Mr. Belvedere is now Ms. Belvedere.
There's that too.
Well, Mr. and Mrs. Belvedere.
Is confused. No, Mr. Belvedere is trans.
But it should be Mr. and Mrs. Belvedere who run the local diner, and they're both there.
should
and
be.
The
It
family
should be.
knows them, and on Christmas there's a Christmas tree, and there's a wreath on the door, and they say we always go in on Christmas Eve to see the Belvedere family, and they cook us French toast sticks, and there's little trains in the corner. Now it's corporate chains with people you've never seen before who don't know you, don't care, don't know your neighbors' names. People can't afford rent. There's homeless people everywhere. There's human crap all over the streets.
You don't
It's gonna-
trust the
it's-
people teaching your own
Cooking for
kid.
yourself
and-
is no joke right now either. I mean, I cook a lot at home, and the $200 worth of groceries is $400 worth of groceries now. Suddenly,
It is so much more
it's
expensive.
crazy. It's double
Yeah.
that it was a year ago. I feel like
How many days of food does that for like how
for
many
us
people?
maybe it's two of us, and it's a week of admittedly bougie food. But real good food: halibut and salmon and crab and
And like that
healthy food.
that $15 Nancy Pelosi ice cream. Do you get
The
that stuff?
Jenny's ice cream. Jenny's ice
She had a
cream.
freezer full of it. Remember
Yeah,
that?
that's
It's
kinda
ridiculous.
crazy.
I've been
Yeah.
ordering ready-made meals, but they're expensive. They're like $13 a meal, and I'm like,
Yeah.
but meat. Then I'm looking at the cost of meat, $18 a pound for some of this meat. I'm like, would I even save money if I cooked? I don't know.
I don't think you save money, but you get better food. I mean,
I went to
that's
the
why
store
I do
today
it.
and
I
I
don't do it
bought-
to save money. I do
bought
it to know
like
what's
a-
in my food.
Yeah,
I think eating
like
out.
that too.
I think going out for food is important though. I think the idea of Saturday morning, you go out to the diner and you know your community and you recognize your friends and your neighbors and everyone's getting pancakes or
yeah, if
whatever.
it's good.
No,
and if
yeah,
you
No,
know
that's
I know,
true.
I
Like
agree.
we live in
Right.
a small town on weekends on the coast, and we make a point of doing that, and it is really nice. But in the city is a whole different story.
Yeah, what's in the food? You don't know what's in it. I mean, and if times really get crunchy, you may really want to know what's in that food before you start eating it.
Yeah, I love this meme. They said if you went to the 1950s and showed a video of a major city today, they would be shocked. You are living in the nightmare dystopia.
Oh yeah, for sure. We've been in the nightmare dystopia for a while.
But if you went to the 1950s, they'd be like, "Have your pancakes. You're getting ready to get shipped off to Korea." Like they didn't
and
have.
here's some lard.
Yeah, so it was like a lot of
Ridiculous.
smiling, and like Main Street had a lot of balloons on it, but like kids were getting shipped off to get their legs blown off in the jungle against their will. It was a horrible time. It was a war machine at its peak, and that was that whole like American dream thing was the war machine at its peak. I don't know what it was like before the 1800s. Were there like local candy?
What
stores?
was the best year then? Is there a good year right before the war started, right before Korea, right after World War II?
I don't know. I think the 90s were pretty baller.
Yeah, the 90s.
That's
is where I
true.
Go to.
They were
Yeah.
great. I feel like the
60s.
90s were the pinnacle of American civilization. It was like the reward we had for everything terrible that had happened.
I like the 70s.
You like the
personally.
70s?
I love the 70s. I
you
love the
think
Vietnam,
fashion,
though?
the Vietnam. I was a kid. Like I love
Yeah.
the music. I love the fashion. I love the,
Well, some of that fashion
Saturday
came back
Night
in the
Fever.
90s.
I love the cheesy movies.
We had like
I loved all of
Delight.
that.
Jimmy Carter.
Oh, that's right.
Jimmy
you guys
Carter,
had the original
w-
Saturday
I
morning.
mean, I
cartoon.
long today for a Democrat leader who's like Jimmy Carter, like principled, totally wrong, but like I think sincere. That was a different
I think he
era
was a
of
good man,
Democrat.
at
he was
least.
he was a sincere guy,
I-
a good
I-
guy. That we don't have them like that anymore. Like Joe Biden is literally the antithesis of somebody like that.
I think the reason the 70s probably takes the cake is just because they gave us Rasputin by Boney M, and that nothing else matters. That's just one of the top songs of all time.
Bell bottoms.
Ever.
I don't have the reference, but I'm a huge 70s fan. The music and the fashion.
You don't know Rasputin?
No, I don't know the reference of the 70s because I wasn't around.
I know Boney M is very popular in where I come from in India.
Oh yeah. Boney M, fantastic. Was it Daddy Cool? What else did they got? Rivers of Babylon. Boney M's great. Rasputin's like one of the greatest songs ever, but of
I don't
course,
know it.
Bohemian Rhapsody is like the greatest song ever written.
The
Led
idea that,
Zeppelin.
that you can walk out
The
and
Eagles.
snap your fingers and have some food handed to you is like, what kind of luxury we're living in this world. I've been accustomed to my whole life that you go to Friendly's and get ice cream, or like go to a Dairy Queen and eat meat at a snap of a finger. And
Have you guys seen these dystopian PSA commercials where it's like, I just saw one recently where it's 3 guys are playing Xbox, and one guy runs over and he opens the box, he opens the cartridge, he puts the CD tray, he puts the disc in. The 3 guys are playing multiplayer and they're all laughing, and then they like high five, and then the screen flickers to today, and it's a guy sitting on his couch with headphones on, and all you hear is clacking, and there's nothing being said, and then he looks at his phone and he swipes, and then he looks down, and then it says innovations are not always good or something like that.
Well, this is something that my son keeps talking about. Is he finds the removal of local multiplayer for games to be really upsetting, because he liked to sit on the couch with his friends. He used to have like 3 controllers, and his 2 best friends would come over and they would all sit there and play games, and I would order pizza and like then take them for ice cream after, you know
Mario
what I mean?
Party.
And it was great. And they would and I could look over and I could see them, and they would be hanging out, and I would like pretend I wasn't there and like let them have the house to themselves basically. But at a certain point, all these games started pulling local multiplayer off. And so they would have to like, if they wanted to play together, they would both have to have 2 Xboxes in the same place and 2 monitors. And so now, I mean, one of his best friend actually moved to Morocco, which is crazy. But anyway, they play remotely, but they can't even play together. Like my son likes to play, he like will find games that are still local multiplayer because he and his dad like to play in the same place. And it's just not fair to these kids that they're like forced to sit there alone if they want to play games with their friends. It's dumb.
Mario Party.
Yeah. He actually wanted to write me an article about how local multiplayer should not be removed from games.
Is he going to do it?
Well, he wrote half of it, and then he got distracted and talked to his friend and whatever. But
just tell him to finish it.
Yeah.
And then you, the editor, will go through it.
I will edit it.
Maybe
But I think it really matters. I think it is a transformation. Even when I was a kid, like I was never a very sophisticated gamer, but I had an Atari, and me and my cousin would sit there and play it together.
Yeah.
We both had our little joysticks.
Pong and Space Invader.
Great
yeah,
game.
I had
Big fan
Pac-Man,
of Defender. Personally, I love that game.
Galaga.
For a lot of reasons, the internet has caused us great problems.
But the upsides are like insurmountably awesome. Like I remember 1994 when I got Diablo. My buddy got Diablo, and then he burned me a copy on a CD, and we played multiplayer online. It was the most groundbreaking thing that you could talk to your friend and play video games with him, no matter where he was on Earth. I was like, what in the... Everything's better now, but the lack of community thing's insidious. You don't realize it at the time that being alone in a room is still being alone in a room.
And then you have an AI girlfriend.
Speaking
So,
of,
that's the thing is COVID has robbed kids and people of just people knowing how to socialize, and they're all dysfunctional. Most younger people I know are dysfunctional unless they grew up in a big family. They don't know how to relate to people. It's tough. And I can tell you, even in the law profession, I know people at my law firm are all going to think I'm talking about them, but there's a real failure to launch among young career professionals.
What does that mean?
They don't understand like deadlines, and I know I sound like get off my lawn here, but like literally the socialization of the abusive workplace, which forges by fire, the understanding that you have to perform and do better than others and like get stuff done and have some discipline. People are like, yeah, I want to work from home, and I don't really feel like doing it.
Don't have driver's licenses.
Don't have driver's licenses. People
don't have drive, just no drive.
People ghost in interviews. Like there's just like it's as if showing as optional, someone else is going to take care of you.
Well,
right?
Because they do. I think when you eliminate struggle from a human being's life in early development, they don't have drive. I think drive is rooted in growing up. You had to accomplish things. For a long time in human history, it was, if you don't, you'll die.
Right.
Then we got to the point where it is tradition, you must. Then we got to the point where you get a trophy whether you did or didn't. And so then there's no struggle. Food's just there. You get a trophy whether you win or lose. Now these people are adults, and they're saying, but I don't want to do anything. Why can't I just have free stuff?
Yeah.
Well, in a way, that's the counterpart of the immigrant experience in the United States, because I'm an immigrant, and my dad came here as a doctor, settled in rural North Carolina, so I grew up in a very rural community, and everyone worked, everyone had a job, no matter whether they were right side of the railroad tracks, wrong side of the railroad tracks. It was just socialization. And as an immigrant today, many decades later, I still have that immigrant mentality.
Same.
Like you cannot sit there and chill. Like you have to be building something bigger and better and always be on the ball. But right. My brother's kids, like that generation is different. They're kind of buying into the sort of apathy of the American youth right now.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Tim
Me
Dillon
neither.
had a bit actually today where he was talking about Gen Z has just figured out the way to game the system right now. So they say, oh, well, I showed up for work late. And they say, why are you late? Oh, well, I'm gay. And they say, oh, okay, well, then fine. Don't worry about it. And they just game the system and say, oh, they make up mental disorders. Say, oh, well, it's because of this mental disorder. It's because of this. It's like the Pokemonification that Gen Z has created in the world. Everything has to be in a category, etc. But really
Wow.
good bit he did today. Anyways,
We're going to go to Super Chats. So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with all of your friends, each and every one, and head over to timcast.com, click Join Us, become a member so you can watch the members-only uncensored show that will be coming up at 10 p.m. And this one is going to be, and I must stress, not family-friendly. I was going to say,
Oh, I wonder.
you know, normally they're not so family-friendly because you swear and stuff, but no, this subject matter is not family-friendly. But it's going to be very important, very interesting, and it's also going to be gross. So you've been warned. But you should still sign up and watch it. You'll enjoy it.
I think I know what it's going to be about.
I think you might. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. Clint Torres says, howdy, people. Clint Torres
Hi,
has
Clint.
returned. He
Good to
is
see
the
you, man.
He owns the super chat.
Yeah, Clint's the man.
Evan Porter says, howdy, Clint. Well, there you go.
Oh.
Shane H. Wilder says, so after the stabbing of the priest during Mass, do we think that violence towards Christians will continue to escalate? I haven't seen anything from mainstream media, probably because of who did the stabbing. Crazy story out of Sydney. It was a bishop, I believe, and there's video footage of it. Apparently, he had made comments about Islam. They threatened to kill him, and then some kid showed up and did it, killed him. I don't know if this is true. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but apparently they said like the parishioners chopped his fingers off.
Chopped his fingers off. The kid was 15.
Wow.
He could be seen in the video afterwards,
Laughing.
like smiling after he had been subdued.
Wow.
dude,
Yeah.
he went to like a food court earlier. Like it was just a regular day for this guy.
I don't.
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, this was the second major stabbing, and
You say they caught the guy and they cut the assailant's fingers
yeah,
off?
the
Or they-
parishioners grabbed the kid after
And then-
he stabbed the bishop. The bishop is
Still alive, isn't he?
non-life-threatening injuries.
Oh, okay.
He's still alive.
Yeah, he's still alive.
and then they cut off the kid's fingers.
That's what I read. Yeah.
I think it was in the course of trying to subdue
Yeah.
him, not like as
Oh.
retaliation. That's my
Oh, okay.
understanding.
Wow.
Yeah.
But then there was a crowd outside saying, like, you know, an eye for an eye, like bring him out, let him face justice.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you did that to like the military commander, he would have been shot on sight.
Right.
So
It's pretty crazy.
All right. Rusty Shackelford says, could they really throw Trump in jail with Secret Service and solitary? A special jail like Wolf of Wall Street, dude?
That was my question too. Like Secret Service. That's one thing that Judge Merchan was saying today. If Trump goes into chambers, Secret Service goes into chambers too.
Yeah.
So if Trump goes to jail, Secret Service goes to jail.
That's
too.
right. So this was all covered when he had his booking and his fingerprints taken. That was all gamed out. Secret Service has a plan for that. So yes, Secret Service would have to be with him.
In the
Now,
jail.
if he is convicted, there will be an appeals process. And just not being a criminal defense attorney myself, from what I'm seeing right now, there are vast grounds for overturning this verdict on appeal. And so I think it will be years, and hopefully he makes it back to the White House. So we're certainly working hard for that. But I don't think he's going to see real jail time as a defendant. I think that it is going to be possible that Judge Merchan puts him in contempt. That's possible.
I hope
Interesting.
that Trump wins and then sends the DOJ into New York. Just keep it that simple, I suppose.
Sends the DOJ in. The problem is, how woke is the most of the federal prosecutorial ranks and the FBI? Very woke.
I'm
They're
not
pretty
worried
bad.
I'm not worried about that at all because Kash Patel will be in charge of the DOJ. So
Okay.
yeah. So once he appoints Kash as AG, there was like some media report where the
I
Democrats
love
were
Kash as
freaking
AG,
out like
yeah.
Kash may be AG, and there were like pundits being like,
I love it.
Kash appointed as AG. He would be, I think, what did he say? He'd be acting AG because he'd have to get confirmation.
Yeah,
or something.
Cash is great, but that's not happening because he'll never get confirmed. Nobody good is going to get. I mean, nobody like super out there and vocal about these issues today is going to get confirmed as Attorney General in Senate, as I see
But
it.
he will be acting AG at least for a moment.
Anybody could
Yeah.
be acting AG. That's
And
true.
so while they're going, we're not going to
I vote for
confirm-
Mike Davis, but Cash is good too. Maybe Cash for the FBI.
Yes.
Mike Davis, huh?
Well, once that happens, then a crack team of loyal dregs will make their way into New York and figure out what's going on over there, huh?
I'm not familiar with Mike Davis. He'd be a good guest on the
Really
show.
interesting.
Mike Davis is awesome, really smart lawyer, clerk for Clarence Thomas, and is one of the top voices out there supporting President Trump and explaining some of these issues. And he's a great guy, inside the Beltway, conservative commentator.
All right. Fallen Angel says, what if AI gets personhood before a fetus? So we talked about Udio, which is this AI song generator. And then another big one is Suno. And when I heard Suno, like Udio was funny. There's a song that Ian is a big fan of called, what is it called?
I taped my balls to my
Glued.
butthole. I glued my balls to my butthole again. I don't know if it was made on Suno or on Udio. Udio tends to make songs that have like one key.
It was Udio.
Sunio's all over the place.
Suno.
It makes dynamic.
The reason
key changes
I'm
and
pretty
stuff.
sure it was Suno, it was Udio, is because Suno's moderation is very strict. So when you try to, so on Udio, sorry, if you type in like a song by Led Zeppelin, it will convert Led Zeppelin into progressive rock, 1970, like whatever. But on Suno, it will say copyrighted blocked.
Oh.
So I'm pretty sure like it was more lax writing the song of that standard.
You can get really granular with it too. You can write your own lyrics. You can like change the chords and make things. If you let the AI do it on its own, it's kind of bland at this point. But Suno apparently is a different story.
Oh, you can write your own lyrics and everything. Yeah. And
Like he was playing some really dynamic songs.
Yeah,
than what you were
and-
just pulling up on the fly.
I think we are a year or two away from a service where you type in a movie about a boy who finds out he's a wizard and it renders you a movie.
It's going to be able to tap into your brain, sense your emotions, and change the music depending on what you're feeling.
Perhaps maybe in the future, but right now what we're looking at with Suno and Udio, the AI generating music. Okay, look.
That sounds horrible.
Yes, I agree.
All of it.
Yeah.
and you can't stop it. The picture generation was already mind blowing. Going onto Midjourney and typing in like photorealistic Donald Trump, winning the 100-meter dash at the Olympics, and it makes it, and you're like, wow.
Yuck.
Now you have songs. And so we were skateboarding this weekend, and Richie Jackson, he's a pro skater. He's hanging out upstairs at the new studio, and we're playing regular music on the PA. It was, I'm playing probably metric. And then my brother sends me Suno, which I'd heard of Udio. So I type in a 50s rockabilly song about Richie Jackson skateboarding, and then I hit render. It takes literally 15 seconds, and then it pops up. I hit play, and it starts playing this rockabilly song. And right as the song is kicking out, Richie walks down the stairs, and the PA goes, "Richie Jackson skateboarding down the street," and Richie just freezes like, "What's happening?
What's
like,
going on?
what is this?" Because if you don't know, this AI can generate a song with lyrics about you instantly. You just heard this fully produced song on the PA system, and you're like, "Did someone pranking me right now?"
Yeah. What's going on?
It's crazy. So I thought it'd be a really funny prank to like, you're driving down the street in your car and you'll see like a guy with like a leather jacket and a girl with a leather jacket. Then you type in, punk rock song about a guy and a girl wearing leather jackets walking down Main, like, I don't know, like Jackson Boulevard in Shepherdstown or whatever. Press render and then pull up next one and go, "How's it going?" And you crank the volume and then they'll hear it's like, "Well, there was a guy and a girl in leather jackets in Shepherdstown." And they're gonna be like, "Wait, what? Like, what am I listening to?"
Creepy AF.
That is
Yeah,
creepy.
but in a year maybe, you are going to type in, like, we already have AI rendered video, which is not very good, but now we have music and lyrics and pictures. Like, I swear, we're a year or two away.
Based on Wikipedia, no doubt.
You're just going to type in, "I want to see a movie, a James Bond movie," and it'll be like, "James Bond is copyrighted, but how about a spy thriller starring, this guy?" And it'll render the movie for you. Now, that's maybe 2 years. I think we're a
It's
year.
like plastic food. It's plastic
Yep.
entertainment.
Plastic food.
Yep.
Plastic
So
water is next.
I would
Synthetic.
Yeah.
I would say
synthetic
most of
water.
the songs we generated suck. If you do instrumental, it's indistinguishable from pop music. You do write me a pop song instrumental, it will give you Taylor Swift. You then have to write the lyrics though, but the lyrics are always pretty crummy. But yeah, we'll talk about that in the after show and the more worrying ramifications. Antrin Skywalker says, Part 1. I'm from Boston, MA, 21, and a college dropout. I'm trying to find a social life in my 20s around the state. With the amount of woke politics that is happening in the state, what should I do? I want to find attractive women that can hold a conversation to mingle with and gym guys to hang out with instead of woke weirdos. What are your thoughts on the state city based on economics and culture from your experience? I'd recommend going to MAGA country. and then all of your problems will just disappear.
I wouldn't go that far.
MAGA country?
How do they disappear?
I am being a bit hyperbolic.
Okay.
But if you move from, say, like Massachusetts to West Virginia, you're not going to find woke politics. There's woke politics here and there for sure, but like, it's pretty safe, you know.
You can actually speak your mind and tell people what you do for a living out here,
Yep.
which was not true in Brooklyn.
Yeah. You come out here, most people are going to be like typically moderate. You don't, you know, in Western Maryland and in the Panhandle, we saw the Trump riding the Velociraptor with the machine gun stuff.
Yeah, that's cool.
But it's always very self-aware. Like they know it's a joke and it's hilarious. No one that we met is like Trump, screaming and banging on the walls. They're all fairly exactly as you like. They probably watch shows like this and they support Trump and they're just regular working class people. So there you go. You just got to get away from the woke cult centers, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the smaller town you go to, the more real it's going to get in the United States.
And-
Even
Yeah,
in blue
Boston
states.
is-
I mean, I'll
Boston
tell
is
you,
tough.
in California, everyone thinks, oh, everything's like LA and San Francisco. You go like 10 miles in from the coast, and it's a different state, and it's mostly red.
Yeah.
Take care of your body too. You'll realize a lot of finding someone's actually within you, and then you'll start to find that you are actually very you have good chemistry with a lot of people. And then you'll just have to find people you're compatible with. That will happen naturally.
All right. Matthew Hammond says, congratulations to Brett and Cassandra McDonald on having twins. I second. Congratulations to Cassandra and Brett.
Big deal. Nice
Twins.
job, guys.
Exciting. Wow.
Yep.
Wyatt Kaldenberg says, Harmeet, we need a nonprofit organization that rates local candidates on how populist America first they are. Judges are impossible to get info on. I vote, but seldom know who I am voting for. Not good.
Well, there is a law under 501c3 of the tax code and C4 and others that says that nonprofit organizations are limited from getting involved in spending money on political issues per se. However, there are a number of conservative organizations out there that provide information. For example, the Liberty Caucus is a conservative group of libertarian-oriented conservatives, and they rate all members of Congress on their voting records. And so you can literally go to their website and see who's the most libertarian voting member of Congress, and then they rate all of them in reverse
What about
order.
local candidates?
Well, local candidates, I'm sure if with enough funding, these organizations could do that as well. But it's a little more difficult because local tends to be nonpartisan, first of all, in almost all cases. And so you don't get an R or a D after your name to help a little bit with that identification. And so, I think it's a little harder. I'll tell you right now, in my town, there's a debate between the pro-housing and the negative and the anti-housing. And ironically, the most like left-wing annoying member of the city council is now running for mayor, board of supervisors, is a NIMBY. Like he's against people building housing in San Francisco. And it's actually the more conservative people who want to build housing for people so that they can live. That's not really a right-left issue. It's more kind of inside baseball. So I think it's a little bit harder to translate to nonpartisan races.
Yeah. A lot of local races are outright nonpartisan.
Yeah, mostly in the United States. Most prosecutors, most board of supervisors, city council, school board, almost all are nonpartisan. They're not no R or D after the person's name.
All right. Oh, Bummer says, longtime viewer, first-time chatter. Shout out to my best friend, Michael Ryan Murphy. It was his 38th birthday yesterday. He was diagnosed last year with ALS and had to medically retire from the police force. He was screwed out of his retirement because he didn't have enough years served. Such BS. I set up a Give, Send, Go under supporting the Murphy family to help with their income loss. Best of luck. Here. Adrienne Curry says, Russia joining the fight against Israel is in Revelation in the Bible. Really? Also, Nostradamus, according to a bunch of outlets, predicted that something like a red force or whatever would start a war in the sea or something like that.
Jeez, is that the Republican Party?
No, I think they think it's the communists.
But the Soviets are gone. Oh, these
the
fools.
Chinese Communist Party.
Oh, the Chinese Communist
Right,
Party.
and Taiwan.
The Chi-Coms.
A war in the sea.
But I mean, to be honest, it's like if your predictions are super vague, like there will be a great darkening of the sky.
Yeah. One who wields a black flag will come again.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
And then like pick a guy. Well, his flag's mostly black. All right. Amasang, Amasang says, everyone knows World War III began with Harambe's death.
Oh, so sad.
Okay.
Well, that was the big change. Around that time is when something happened in this country.
Still messes me up.
I had an idea for a short film where they turn on the Large Hadron Collider and then they like crank it up to the highest power imaginable. And then when it slams, a pulse ripples across the planet and it makes every conspiracy theory real because it alters and then even the ones that contradict each other.
That's awesome.
So like Hitler lives on the moon, but he's currently in Argentina vacationing. So like you somehow has to make sense. And he's 130 years old or something. How old would he be?
And then he's got conspiracy theories. You're like, our conspiracy theories are gaining conspiracy theories.
It'll be like the year after COVID.
Conspiracies.
When all the conspiracy theories came true.
All right. Patrick De Niro says the reason will be Biden in 50 years, Tim, LOL, in reference to what started the World War III. I don't know. I think Biden may be like a Buchanan, you know?
I've never seen a guy in charge of a military with that state of mind. His slow, like it's really, really disturbing the way he's just kind of nothing. They just said they're going to start investigating the Baltimore boat crash.
Well, they
into the
did
bridge.
say it on the first day that they did say that they would do an investigation.
And now they're saying it again today that they're going to.
Now they started.
Now they're like, maybe there is some criminal culpability in this.
Like 3 months.
Perhaps.
What was it? 5 weeks ago?
No, we said it was an accident, but now we're concerned about,
Now that you mention
and these
it.
liberals called Marjorie Taylor Greene evil because she said she wanted it investigated. That's absolutely insane to me.
I think there's a lot of distraction going on right now, and that's one of them.
The bridge thing.
Yeah.
You don't think it was nefarious?
I don't know. But I think that, to your point, suddenly now they're opening up a criminal investigation into what everybody thought should be looked at the time as a criminal matter and eliminated, because that's when you find the facts, not weeks later. I think this is a typical tactic of the left to just keep dropping distracting news stories to, destabilize America's focus.
Dan's Hobby says, why is the RNC having the convention in a blue city? This is the problem with the GOP and RNC. Start supporting red areas.
Okay, the answer to that is a simple one. The bidding process for RNC and DNC happens a certain period of years out, and then we put out RFPs and cities respond. And we were all, I'd say most of us were hoping that Nashville would be the choice of the Republican National Convention. The two governors, the sitting governor and the prior governor, came and lobbied the RNC. Their food was better. The music scene was going to be awesome. It's a red state. And Nashville City Council happens to be blue. And they did not want us, and they voted against us. And so we were really left at the altar with a single suitor, Milwaukee. So...
But you can't just go to any city you want.
You cannot. There are thousands of hotel rooms required.
Yeah.
The national news media, California, for example, where we can't even fit into one hotel. We're buying up all the hotels, 2 hotels to fit all of our delegates, the press, and all of that.
And I think we were, because all the hotels are controlled by the RNC, is that how it works?
Yes.
So we're going to be at the RNC in Milwaukee, and we had to find alternate means because the RNC basically said, you have no guarantees at all. Good luck. Give us your money. And we were like, no. Yeah,
But to get hotels.
So I'm not the one in charge of handling all the event stuff because we have staff for that.
Yeah.
But something happened where it's like, okay, we need to find hotel rooms for our staff. We're going to be there producing the show. And so we reached out to a hotel room, and they're like, the RNC has everything controlled. And then the RNC said something like, if you book rooms, we can't guarantee they'll be in the same place. We can't guarantee you'll get the room you asked for. So there you go.
Airbnb.
Yeah. So, but we actually found alternate means of setting everything up. So I think we're going to be like outside the city or something. I don't know.
Well, in fact, many of the delegations are way outside the city. Yeah. We were, it was a point of humor that people who supported me for chair of the RNC were wondering if their state's delegation was going to end up being in, Chicago or the next state or something like that. That didn't happen to be true, but in Cincinnati, in the Cleveland RNC convention, California was 2 hours away.
Now, here's the thing: there's the RNC and the DNC, and the reason we're not going to the DNC is because the DNC is the dangerous one where people will likely get mercilessly beaten and or killed, and it's in Chicago, which is just like, wow. That seems just like
chaos,
a political nuclear bomb.
Well, wasn't it 68 in Chicago? I mean,
that was the big one. It's just, you take the chaos of Chicago, add it to the chaos of this year, and the left does not like Joe Biden. They're not going to protest the RNC. I really don't think so. In 2016,
Yes, they are.
yeah, but in 2016, the protests at the RNC were like a handful of people, and the protests at the DNC were thousands of people smashing the barricades and jumping in and trying to storm their way into the building. So in Milwaukee, yeah, you'll probably see some stuff. I mean, I don't know how crazy it would get. We're not really concerned about it with our assessments and what we expect to happen. The DNC is like, nah, I've grown quite fond of living, so I'll be avoiding
Well, that's
that
where
one.
the baseline in Chicago is violence.
Right.
So it's not the baseline in Milwaukee.
No, I think Milwaukee will be more terroristic threats.
Yes.
The far left will be calling venues and bars and
this
hotels.
Hamas protest nonsense is definitely going to be front and center.
But
Yeah,
the
I
Hamas
think
people
so.
are angry with Biden, not Trump. They don't like
It
Trump.
doesn't matter. It's chaos. It's disrupting. It's getting attention for themselves. They're not angry at the people of San Francisco either, but they're preventing people from getting to the hospital,
Sure.
like getting their organs. Like somebody missed an organ transplant when they blocked the Bay Bridge.
And
a few weeks ago.
there will
that's
be
awful.
there will be political action of some sort in Milwaukee for the RNC, but the DNC protests, I imagine, are going to be in the thousands. It's going
to be
massive.
violent. It's going to be a
Massively.
mess.
They're planning for violence. The organizers are organizing to be violent, to shut things down, to get in the way, to cause up a big mess and chaos.
Yeah, there's a lot of. For all the despair on our side, there's a lot of disagreement on the left.
All right. Zirgi says, my dad passed away a few days ago. He was murdered by the government at Camp Lejeune. He's in the lawsuit, but they're sitting on his and so many other cases. I need help getting in touch with Trump so he can share my dad's message. I'm sorry to hear about your dad, man. I don't
That's
know
terrible.
what to do or how to assist with that.
Class action lawsuits, for what it's worth, do take years. And then at the end, lawyers make a lot of money. But hopefully with the damages in these cases, there will be good settlements for people.
Tyrant says, was trying to super chat about my opinion on the Civil War movie ending, and YouTube won't let me because it's against the policies. Yup. Did you see that movie, Civil War, or hear about it?
No.
Nick Offerman plays the president, and he's saying he's not Trump, and they're saying it's apolitical. It's basically a movie about Trump, or at least the Trump predecessor, and a civil war breaks out in California and Texas, storm DC, and kill the president.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it's a crazy film. The movie's actually just about journalists on a road trip, but
Didn't they make the journalists the heroes?
not really.
Okay.
They're actually scumbags in the film.
They're
and-
the protagonists, but they're not good people.
Yeah, I think the takeaway for the film is that you should hate journalists afterwards, and I'm not making a joke.
Well, you probably should.
There's a scene where there's gunfire and people are being killed, and the one journalist looks at the younger journalist and he smiles and nods, and she smiles back at him
Why?
because this is what journalists do in conflict. When I saw that, I loved it. I'm like, people need to understand that in war reporting, these journalists are basically cranking themselves off to what's going on. They're excited. They love it. They get a thrill from it. They smile and laugh when they watch people getting shot. I'm not exaggerating.
That's awful.
In the movie, the tanks are rolling in. There's guys up on a building. They blow them up. And then he looks over and he smiles. He's like, yeah. And she's like, yeah. And then starts
my
taking
God.
pictures. That's what they do. And I was like, I'm glad they're showing people this.
I'm glad I'm not a journalist.
There's that photo I like to show where we showed it last week. There's a dead girl who got hit by a stray gunfire and she's collapsed and dead. And then one of the
This is in the
photographers.
film?
No, this is real life.
This is real life. Oh.
One of the photographers, it was in Haiti, in Port-au-Prince, was surrounded by a gaggle of photographers, all just snapping endless photos of a dead girl on the ground. So he got up and walked to the side and took a picture of the press, taking a picture of the dead girl so people could see what it was like. And that was the award-winning photo of what the journalists do.
I remember in what was it, 2021, was it 2020? Anyway, it was sometime, and there was a walkaway rally. Remember those walkaway rallies? And there were all the walkaway people, and then there was a little tiny protest of people against the walkaway people, and one of the walkaway people went over to the counter protest, and it was like a man and a woman one on one side with one kind of sign and one with the opposing sign. And they just stood there having a conversation. And it got a little heated. But I did the same thing. I took a step back, and what there were 20 photographers and reporters all shooting pictures of this like major conflict of two people having a conversation at the edge of a rally.
Yep.
And for me, like that was the biggest takeaway. And I have it like in a pretty prominent place, and I look at it and I'm like, correct.
They call them,
it's not the thing, it's this.
They call themselves vultures.
Yeah, they look like it.
That is not an insult. They call themselves vultures. And that's what they do. So it's funny when you'll get murmurings of like a major protest or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then my favorite are when like 10 protesters show up and there's 100 press. And then those journalists are there, and many of them are on assignment. So they're like, we have to get something from this. And so...
Especially the stringers.
So they, I need money. And so they will manufacture. A guy will, pick up a bottle and then chuck it over into a garbage can and take a picture, and they'll say violent protester throws bottle or who knows what. Whatever they can make happen out of it.
Yeah,
It's
hard.
theater.
It's hard to,
Yeah,
well,
not-
Then the best part is the far
theater
left.
at least has a dramatic story arc.
The far left has a saying, don't smash cameras, they can pay your rent.
Well, that makes sense.
Right. And one of the most interesting, I'll put it this way, moments was at the No NATO protests 12 years ago. Antifa had formed a line and then abruptly yelled, "Get the press!" And then they all started charging at the journalists, and the journalists panicked and fled. One thing I really love about journalists, and this is meant to be sarcastic, is when someone will be seriously injured. I saw a person who was bleeding seriously from the head in Chicago, and medics were attending to him, and the journalists were shoving people out of the way to get pictures of the person bleeding out. And,
Oh my God.
And the medics were like, these are activist medics too. They were like, "Can you get that camera out of our faces?" And the person who was bleeding was yelling, "Please stop, please stop." And the journalists don't care. They shove you out of the way, and there's like 5 guys, and they're just snapping away. You don't exist to them. And so then it was shortly after that they yelled, "Get the press," and then they started attacking journalists. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm not surprised.
It's interesting.
Yep. Not all conflict reporters are bad. I've worked with a lot of good ones. We make fun of the bad ones, but there's so many bad ones. They laugh and they smile and they gloat and they cheer for this stuff.
It's been on my mind a lot. Maybe since we saw that movie, maybe that's why, that people that chase rage for money. And it's so easy to get people angry, and then they agree with you, and then they ad revenue
Sounds
comes
like you're
in.
describing social media
It's
influencers.
like my career. I feel like sometimes I'm like, we talk about problems, and it's like we have to walk the line about not like just giving over to the love. Where are the problems? I need more problems, or I can't be profitable
Yeah.
tonight. Like
That's
just,
right.
Oh,
I'll grab one more here. Kane Abel says, Jordan Peterson is more like a dad. Matt Walsh is a best friend, but not sure about a dad. I disagree. It's the other way around.
I agree.
Jordan Peterson
way
is the
around.
guy who's like, you got to get your life straight, man. What are you doing? Like clean your room. And you're like, you're right.
And then he buys
Jordan.
you another beer.
Yeah. Matt Walsh is the guy who's like, shut your mouth, you idiot. You clean your room now or you're not getting ice cream. Like he's the more serious, stern, shut up, get it done kind of guy.
Well, he's got more kids too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, and head over to timcast.com because the members-only show will be starting up in a few minutes. And we're going to be talking about AI and the latest advent in AI. A new video was released, and it is not family-friendly at all, but we should probably talk about it. So that'll be at timcast.com in a minute. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me personally at Timcast. Harmeet, do you want to shout anything out?
Yes, follow the work that we do at the Center for American Liberty, www.libertycenter.org.
Right on.
I'm Libby Emmons. You can find me on Twitter at Libby Emmons. And of course, you can check out all the work we're doing at thepostmillennial.com and humanevents.com.
yes. Follow me at Ian Crossland on the internet. Also, Harmeet, your Twitter, which is XPNJABAN. What is that?
It means woman from Punjab, where I was born.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Good to meet you. Good to see you again. What's it?
Can I
Yeah, let's
shout
talk
out
about this
the
Minds event.
Minds Fest next week? I'm going to be doing this Minds Fest in Austin at the Vulcan Theater on April 27th.
Yeah.
And you guys should all come check it out. It's going to be really cool.
Yeah, I'm going to be there too. It's Austin, Texas. I think it's, what is it? Festival.minds.com is where you can get tickets. And use promo code Ian for 20% off. See us there. Libby will be there. Or I don't think you're going to be there this time.
I will not. I'm testifying in Congress tomorrow, though, in front of the
nice.
Constitution Committee. I'm going to talk about
Oh,
the
excellent.
COVID restrictions and how it is the civil rights crisis of my lifetime. And so that'll be available, I'm sure, on congressional websites
is it-
everywhere.
That's fascinating.
I didn't even ask you on the show. Is it civil rights laws your
Yeah,
specialty?
we do civil rights, First Amendment. We represented Simon Atiba right now, suing Chris and John Pierre.
Oh, that's
Karen
excellent.
Jean Pierre. We're representing Andy No. We represented won 3 cases of the Supreme Court on religious liberties issues. So we kind of are the ACLU, if you like, of the right, representing individuals against the man.
It is always good to have you. Really great
Thank
to see you
you.
again. Thanks, Harmeet.
Yeah, pleasure having you back, Harmeet. I think the last time you were on the show was when we were in Phoenix. I think was
Yeah.
right.
TPUSA.
Yeah.
TPUSA.
I didn't really get to meet you then or speak to you at all because you were on a stage like 20 feet in front of me. But it's a pleasure to meet you in real life.
you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
We will see you all over at timcast.com in a minute. Thanks for hanging out.